qualified to be your Clash Royale champion. Takes it. Sergio Ramos wins.
Huge. And nothing to stop the Hog Rider. It's going to get swing on the tombstones. That's it. Nobody's the first ever CRL World Champions. And there you have it. The fire goes up. It's a golden this time. 293. Nothing to do with it. Team Liquid is going to be your CRL champion.
Team Liquid is done in search of the goal.
117 HP remaining. EQ trying to make room. Team Queso completes the reverse sweep, and they are your 2020 Clash Royale League World Champions.
Four months down, now we kick off month number 5. And everybody, I hope you're ready to samba because we have a half Brazilian monthly final here in Clash Royale League. Hello, welcome back. I'm Rich Slayton. That's Andrew Guy. More CRL coming your way today. And Andrew, a lot of familiar faces, but one flag, a lot of green and yellow flying all over the CRL arena today.
That's right. Happy Saturday, everybody. Here in June in our 5th monthly finals, we have the King coming back. Will he reign supreme? Team Queso's Ruben, our former world champion, or will it be one of our 4 Brazilians or one of our 5 newcomers here to our monthly finals? A very, very exciting lineup, maybe a bit of an unexpected lineup, but you know what? The best way to get to know these guys and how we got here is taking a look at our journey so far.
Clash Royale League 2021 is here, and this year, it's every player for themselves in an all-out free-for-all duel for the throne. It all begins with the Trophy Race, a monthly event where everyone, and we mean everyone, faces off and battles their way to the top of the monthly leaderboard. Millions of players will compete, but only the top 1,000 move on to the monthly qualifiers. The 8 competitors that conquer the competition advance to the monthly finals, where the only thing left to do is prove that you're the best of the best. The winner goes home with a royal amount of cash prizes and competitive points. After 8 rounds of non-stop Clash Royale action, the top 24 players from the competitive leaderboard will automatically qualify for the World Finals. Fell just short of making it? Don't worry, it's not over yet. The top remaining players on the leaderboard who just missed out on qualifying will be invited to a last chance qualifier for a shot at 8 remaining World Finals spots. In the end, the finalists will duke it out for their share of the prize pool. Clash Royale League 2021 will determine who's got what it takes to sit on the throne and reign as the world champion.
Hoisting those trophies, maybe one of the best feelings in Clash Round. Of course, we have 2 champions on the commentary team this year for 2021. Of course, CRL Western Champion, AC Joshua Sharon, and CRL World Champion coach with Team Liquid, Eric Benamou. Guys, we haven't all been on screen at the same time, but it's been so much fun to have you guys a part of this team this year.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm super excited for this month as well. Being from the LATAM region, having 5 representatives there, I have no idea who I'm rooting for, but it is without a doubt probably the most representation that LATAM has ever had in something like this. So I'm very, very excited.
And Josh?
Yeah, I'm super excited as well. These matches are going to be great. I've had so much fun this year. And I got to say, Codeo, that's my man for this month.
Ooh, hot prediction coming out from AC. So, yeah, we'll have Josh and Eric, of course, the 4 of us rotating through, as always, and getting some great insight from 2 champions. So, Josh and Eric, of course, we'll see you guys back in just a little bit. But, Andrew, we still have some business to take care of here up at the top of the show. Of course, now, in this 2021 year, we are all about that dual format.
That's right. Josh and Eric know this format very, very well. They may not have played through our dual format, but it is very important if you want to compete in CRL. The first thing that you guys need to know is our meta did change, but we will not be seeing Goblin Drill at all in the competition today. If we do see it, that will be not good news for the player. But that being said, each player brings 4 decks consisting of 32 unique cards to this competition. Each deck can only be played once per match. and players must win their best of 3. We're playing best of 3, so the first player to get to 2 with their unique decks in this dual format is how you will climb through our bracket, Rich.
And that bracket going to be a challenging one as always. Of course, we are in the double elimination format. You see both the upper and lower bracket, and all 4 of those matches seeded with the blue player and the upper seed and the red player in the lower seed. And current number 3 on the leaderboards, Viper will kick things off against Tico, one of our 4 Brazilians. KK out of Japan up against Wallace, Ruben and Cody go, and then Lucas and Surge TS. And of course, if you lose, Andrew, you're not out. You have to fight your way through a much more difficult challenge.
That's right. It is double elimination. As you can see, our 5th, 6 matches will be taking place there today. But what's it all for? Why are we here? It's all about the money and, most importantly, those leaderboard points. So let's talk through those dollar signs first. First place walks away with $20,000. We give away over $50,000 every single month for competition. Not to mention the fact that you get $1,000 just for qualifying here and being in the top 8. That's how it breaks down, 1st through 8th place. Quite a difference there between 1st and 8th, just like in the points here. 1st place walks away with 100, 8th with 35, and 35 points all the way through 5th place, Rich. It's still a good amount of points, but when you talk about our global leaderboard, a couple winners in there, but a lot of just consistent, phenomenal players.
Well, one thing you look at seeing this screen right now, Andrew, is you can see the players who are here this weekend who are already way up on that leaderboard. You can see Viper there. You see Ruben. Lucas rounded out number 10. KK as well. On top of that, Wallace is also currently in that top 56 range, in that range of qualifying for the play-in. So many players here repeating, putting on great performances, stacking up those points. And despite maybe not seeing our leader right now, Muhammad Light, who will almost assuredly qualify, this is still an ace-level final for this month.
Yeah, 2 of the players you mentioned throughout that, KK and Wallace. That is our match of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Hashtag KK or hashtag Wallace. Vote now in the chat. That's all you got to do. Just type out the hashtag and then the words on the screen. Whichever one you want to win, that is the way that you vote. It's going to be our 2nd matchup of the day, which will be you and Josh casting that. And you guys will all be sitting back along with myself, voting and watching for your prize horse.
Yeah, trying to pick on that one is such a challenge, Andrew. I mean, You have KK on one side, one of the top players out of the East for so long. Really creative, really talented, excellent micro. On the other side, you have Wallace, who has this chill, ice-cold X factor. So before we send you off, I think we can get your prediction.
You know, I gotta say, KK is a man after my own heart. I've watched him play for a long time. I love the way he plays. I love the quick cycle. He's also a guy that goes to Mortar sometimes. As you guys know, I'm a bit of a fan of Mortar. While I do love Wallace's icy composure, I'm gonna go KK on this one.
All right, KK's the pick. I guess I got to get mine in so I don't leave you hanging so much. I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to say Wallace. He clutched it up for his squad at World Finals. He's going to do it again here today. Who knows? We'll find out soon. That's it for Andrew for now, buddy. I'll see you in a little bit, but we're going to waste no more time and jump into our action. Joining me for the first couple of matches today, of course, multiple-time Western champion with many different teams, Immortal, Space Station Gaming, my good buddy all the way from Sacramento, California, Joshua A.C. Sharon. Josh, we're kicking things off here today with a matchup between the Frenchman Viper, who has kind of quietly become one of the top players this year, up against the young man Tico out of Brazil, who made his big splash last year, getting 3rd place at the CWA Cup. It does feel like the advantage for Viper, but I do want your thoughts on this matchup from a player-based perspective.
Yeah, you know, it kills me to say because I totally agree with you. Viper, he's been consistent all year, finishing so high on ladder season after season. But my 3M brethren, Tico, one of the greatest 3M players to ever play the game, love watching his gameplay. 3rd in the CWA. I mean, he is someone where it doesn't matter if he doesn't show up for 9 months. If he's in that spot, he's going to compete and he's going to do well.
Going Mortar here in the opening game is Tico. Again, one of 4 Brazilians we'll see today. It's going to be very curious to see if Brazil can get themselves a monthly championship, despite being one of the most popular countries for Clash Royale worldwide. Very high overall. It might even be top 5 in total downloads for the game, if I remember correctly. Really, really popular game. As far as I can remember, Josh, I don't know of any major world championships that Brazil has taken down.
Yeah, I feel like there might have been one like 3 years ago or something. But as far as like recent winnings, I don't think so. And I think this is their time to prove that they are ready and that they are, you know, they are a force to be reckoned with.
Shout out to chat, who I'm sure right now is listing all the championships the Brazilians have won. Hey, look, Surge TS won the Cabrera Cup back in 2019. We'll call that one a championship as we go on past the first couple minutes of gameplay. Royal Hogs with, wow, Bomber. Royal Hogs EQ cycle up against Mortar, what's appearing to be Mortar GY here.
Yeah, pretty unfortunate matchup right there so far, but once we see the graveyard, it's definitely going to flip. But yeah, the quick cycle against the Mortar is not something you want to go with. But the snowball is going to help a lot on offense. He just has to be so careful about overextending too much. Right there, Cannicart is going to lock onto the left, and that is a great first push from Tico. He had no control over the game in the first 2 minutes, but all he was doing was trying to hit double elixir. That's when it's his time to shine, and we see it right there, getting the left tower down to 1277.
Yeah, massive connection here, double lane pressure out of the Brazilian. Valkyrie in front of the Musketeer to get some protection, and immediate loading up picks on the left-hand side is Viper. Fireball in response. It seems like Viper's having a lot of difficulty breaking through between the double ball, the Mortar. Of course, don't forget the Valkyrie as well. What's the key from this point on for Viper?
I think it's going to be probably kind of an overwhelm with split lane pressure. Maybe I would like to see him cycle Royal Hogs in the middle and then just try and get Earthquake value plus, yeah, just I think a few other things. Right here, we're going to see a defensive EQ, but I think it's going to be too late.
Yeah, Graveyard all over that right-hand side. Valk gets an extra swing just to add insult to injury, and barring a disconnection or maybe a natural disaster, Tico looks like he's got this one all the way sewn up. Fireball gets it done. GG, well played. No 3M to kick things off. No problem, though. The Graveyard Mortar Cannon card. This is a deck, Andrew. I mean, this is Josh. I've been saying Andrew for so long. This is a deck, Josh, that has been so fundamentally central to the Clash Royale meta up until recently. It kind of has disappeared. Why do you think Tico didn't just go with it today, but ran it in game number 1?
Well, so Viper is the one player where you can kind of get away with this. You're not really, you're worried about quick cycle, Hog, Royal Hogs right here. So you don't really have to worry about the Mother Witch. You don't really have to worry about the E-Barbs, even though E-Barbs wouldn't have been that bad of a matchup. And I think if he's going against what, I think he believes the most likely scenario is that his opponent wants to start off strong. He thinks that he's one of the best players in the world, so he thinks that he can go in with Hog right away and just win easily. And so that matches up well. Doesn't get Hog, gets Royal Hogs instead, and it's an easy win for him.
Really, really good analysis there from a multiple-time champion. Tico making the call, most likely not against hard counters for Graveyard. The general wisdom with GY decks in duel mode, Josh, has been don't run it game number 1. Get some information and go game 2 or game 3. So Tico breaking all the rules here and coming out on top. So Graveyard out, so no concerns on that side for Viper. So we saw Viper run Royal Hogs. He's down 1 here, obviously known for his Hog Rocket play. It seems like that would be a bit of an on-the-nose play here in game number 2, though. I
really don't know what he wants to do. I think it might come down to trying to predict what Tico is going to run. He has already used Fireball, and so this is what I was going to say. As we look at the fastest miners I've ever seen in my entire life, this meta has made it so hard for my eyes to adjust to these miners. But I really think that he just has to worry. He has no Fireball, so the decks that are going to be countering Mother Witch are the decks that Tico is likely going to be using.
That's a very interesting thought. So take a look at what Tico has here, right? We're seeing Zappies, we're seeing Miner. What's the major Mother Witch counter that you believe he might be running in here?
You know, I don't know. We could be looking at like a weird Loon. I really don't exactly know just yet.
So Mortar Miner this time for Viper, going with Mortar as his opponent did in game number 1, but this time going with a faster cycle version. Of course, I'm sure Andrew's sitting back there going, why didn't I get to cast this match today? And sets up P.E.K.K.A. What an interesting deck so far out of Tico. Minor, Zappy's Mother Witch, P.E.K.K.A. Fisherman.
Yeah, this is starting to look more and more like a P.E.K.K.A. Loon weird variation. You can get away with that. Usually, I feel like it should be utilizing Snowball, and right there we do see the Loon come out. I like this deck choice, and I love this deck choice now.
Yes, the ill-placed Mortar is going to mean a lot of trouble here for Viper. That's a full-on tower down on the right-hand side, and you're playing Mortar Miner. Viper given the good game, and if you've been playing this deck in this situation, you know why. It's going to be nearly impossible for Viper to get any of those towers down at this point.
Yeah, he is going against a deck that sort of struggles against defending against Mortars, but I mean, he's going to cycle P.E.K.K.A.s and then cycle Loons, and it's going to be all but over. But right here, I like what he's doing. Pressure opposite lane. See, you know, the thing that I love talking about is what can you do to give yourself a chance? Right there, he's got that shot to maybe take a tower.
Wow, E-Barb does get turned onto the Miner, though. So the big push, the huge send, the 9 Elixir on the right-hand side, creates maybe some concern for Tico, but defends it completely capably and is in great control here with 22 seconds left.
Yeah, didn't panic. I loved how he chose to defend that. Uses the Fisherman, pushes off the E-Barb with a Miner. Just brilliant defense. And look, I mean, Tico played well. He kind of just waited for his opponent to make mistakes throughout the games, but it doesn't matter. Like, he had such a solid first 2 games. I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. And we have all these Brazilians, and so far, he's stepping up exactly like he should.
That's a big one there. Tico taking match number 1 off of Viper. And, I don't know if we have the stats somewhere of how often has the number 8 seed beat the number 1 seed to kick off the show, but it happened right here. And Viper, number 3 overall on the leaderboards, but definitely didn't play comfortable today.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive Mortar mistake was just so weird, and it's just something, when you're a Hog player who is so well known for being so, where people describe your gameplay as beautiful, you don't expect those kind of mistakes from him. I just am really shocked to see that happen, and I know it's his first games. I don't think it's nerves. I think it's just this weird thing that just lined up for him, and he just wasn't able to do it correctly.
So Tico is going to move on in the winner's bracket. We're going to look at that in a little bit here, but gets the clean 2-0 to open things up. And Josh, we've looked at that bracket, how much more difficult it is when you drop down to the lower bracket. I mean, the route for the upper bracket winner is so short. It's basically you step out your door, go get your mail, and you're in the winner's final. Whereas that lower bracket, you might as well catch a plane ride for how long it takes. Viper having to battle his way back here, and it all started with this game number 1. Talk to me about this matchup and this choice here, because this from your description was a pretty brilliant call by Tico.
Yeah, let me start with Tico. I love the choice right there to use Mortar. It's going to be one of the few buildings that actually is able to work well against an EQ cycle deck. He adds in the Graveyard. I love the Snowball in these Graveyard decks, and the Fireball as well, just in case his opponent wants to try and run some deck that's including Mother Witch. Viper, on the other hand, it's just, it's hard to like that deck choice because it's not what he usually runs. He tends to go like Hog, but it also gets countered by the same thing. So he's basically just using a worse variation of something that he's considered the best in the world. And so I'm not exactly sure why he wanted to do that. He must have thought, according to recent games played by Tico, that it would work up well or match up well against it, but it just doesn't, as we saw.
So a rough outing here for Viper in game number 1, and then we move on to our second game of the matchup, and Viper again goes relatively quick with the cycle. And there are certainly some things here that made it feel like he wouldn't be out totally to dry with the Mortar, the Musketeer, of course, the Spear Goblins as well. But, of course, there is always one big caveat to that, Josh, and that's that the Mortar goes where it's supposed to.
Yeah, really unfortunate for Viper. I mean, obviously not what we want to see from, someone who, as a collective, we all think that he's, top 3, top 5, top 10 player in the game. But with that, we know if there's anybody who's going to be able to have a showing like that and then be able to bounce back, it's going to be him.
So, of course, Viper not done because we are in double elimination format. No matter who you are, you have 2 lives to give. So Viper has given up his first and will drop down into the lower bracket where from now on he is playing elimination matches. And you see the route to the final has to go through a bunch of extra games. But Tico does save both his lives. So Tico will move on to the second round of the upper bracket where he'll await the winner of KK and Wallace, who will be seen fairly shortly here in a few minutes. But again, if we back out of this view from it, you can see how short that route is. Tico now has to win 2 more matches to make it to the grand final, whereas Viper has to win 1, 2, 3, 4 matches to get to that grand final. 4 very challenging matches, of course, because this is going to be a big rough, a pretty rough go no matter who he faces in that next round. So you see how valuable, especially that first round win is. Now, Josh, we've got from one big matchup, and now we're going to one that is kind of a classic matchup in the world of martial arts where I come from. Japan versus Brazil. KK versus Wallace. And this one was for our predictions, everyone voting for it. So as we're waiting for our predictions to come in from all the viewers, let's go to you now. I picked Wallace. Andrew picked KK. Where are you going today with this one, Josh?
Yeah, I really have to say KK. He has just shown up for 4 years, and he's always been considered one of the best players in the world. As much as it pains me to say, when you play bait, you end up becoming a phenomenal player. And while I hate going against bait, when I play against it, I think it's going to provide a lot of different ways for you to improve your game. And it shows with KK and Morton. They're just so talented. I think it's going to be KK taking this one.
Well, it's certainly one of the top players in the history of the game, and often sought after free agent whenever his contracts have come up. Let's take a look at the results here from your voting, and wow, 99% to 1% say KK. So I guess I'm in the very, very big minority here, believing in Wallace and that stone-cold clutch personality. Look, it might be a difficult out for Wallace, but someone has to go for him, and that's going to be me here today, Josh.
Yeah, it's not even like going from 1% to 2% or anything. It's just a stagnant 1%. I think you might be the only person thinking that. But look, it's contrary to what the overall opinion is. I think, Wallace has a shot.
Well, Wallace certainly has overcome difficult odds in the past. Was for a while one of the top semi-pro players in the game, picked up for CRL when Payne completely redid their roster for the fall split of 2020, and of course was a big part of that team going all the way to the World Final where he clutched up for Payne Gaming against Nova Esports. So certainly not one to look a challenge in the face and back down, but of course that challenge today comes in the form of one of the top players in the game in KK.
Yeah, he also clutched up in the regional playoffs. Do you guys remember who what team he did really, really well against?
Were you on it?
I was indeed, yes.
I remember there might have been a little bit of talk back and forth on that one, and then, yeah, as it turns out, it did work out fairly well for Wallace and the rest of Payne Gaming.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Flying machine down for KK. So we're seeing Snowball Poison on the side of Wallace, Fireball Barb Barrel as the spell distribution on the side of KK. Obviously the quick response with the Fireball, nice for KK, but that extra damage on Wallace's side certainly could be valuable as time goes on. Josh, talk to me a little bit about this matchup.
Yeah, so first of all, love that gob cage placement. I didn't even know about that gob cage placement to allow the flying machine to walk into the range, or I guess fly into the range of the tower. So that's a neat little play. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to Fireball versus Poison. You want to save Fireball. It's by far the strongest spell, especially in this duel format. But when you have a near identical mirror matchup, and then you're running Fireball versus Poison, the Fireball is going to be so valuable in so many different instances. That direct damage that is going to be able to take it out immediately is going to be so unbelievably strong. And we see right here, he can't place things on top correctly. He has to worry about all the damage that's going to come across when he places the Fireball down, and the Flying Machine is going to take out the Mega Knight almost all by itself.
Absolutely abusing that Flying Machine right now is KK. No really excellent answer to the big piece of machinery from Wallace's side. Zappies don't do it fast, has to go Flying Machine for Flying Machine, but of course, and he loses that Fireball battle. So very difficult situation here for the Brazilian in game number 1. 99% to 1%, folks. And, you know, when the matchup comes out this way, yeah, that's certainly going to stick to it in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, just really unfortunate that that was the specific matchup he was going against. The Poison is a great variant, but game 1, that is the most important game of the set. And to use a variation like that, I like when players are willing to use whatever cards they want in order to secure victory. And that's why KK took game number 1.
And that was a huge one. We saw how much that Flying Machine was a menace. Look at that Flying Machine just hanging out there in that no man's land. And you can see the shadow, meaning the Flying Machine, a little bit more over the river rather than over the tiles. Zappies have to come out. Look how far behind Elixir-wise Wallace is at that point. And it was essentially a matter of time once we got there before it was going to be a GG.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the game wasn't over, but with like 50, 60 seconds left of the game, it's just clear who's going to win because he just wins every bridge battle. He wins every interaction. Yes, he has the MK that he can play, but with KK being as experienced as he is, he understands all I need to do is split my recruits, split my Royal Hogs, use my Flying Machine over the middle, and then Wallace was never able to protect his Mother Witch that he always placed in the middle, and it was a simple victory for him.
So a nice open here for KK. Going into game number 2, they both took very similar looks overall. Flying Machine out on both sides. Fireball out for KK. Do you imagine that Wallace goes to Fireball immediately here in game number 2?
I think he has to. I really think game number 2, you got to steal the momentum back, and that's going to require a Fireball deck. I don't know if he wants to go quick cycle with it or try and get fancy with it. Even though you're down 0-1, and you can assume that I really like this deck choice. What he's going to do is kind of force KK into like weird spots, and going Lava First Play is definitely going to be a weird spot for him.
Very, an immediate E-Giant at the bridge. So, and the Inferno Dragon, is there going to be out of the range? No, the NATO pulls it all the way in. This is looking rough on the side of Wallace.
Yeah, I mean, just not the start he's looking for. KK can just tank that entire lava. It's going to get about 1,000 damage if he doesn't choose to defend it. And right there, Cannon Card at the bridge as well. He wants to apply as much pressure as possible, and I love these plays from KK.
Yeah, I mean, how brutal is it that you go with Lava First Play, and your opponent has the exact counter immediately ready in hand to punish you in the opposite lane?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a phenomenal deck choice from KK right there. Using the Tombstone right there, which I'm cool with. I don't know if it's the exact correct play because you have to be careful about the opposite lane Loon that he might have. I don't know if he was able to recognize that it was the Loon deck. He could have been thinking Lava Arrows at the beginning, but it works out. Has the King down to 1998, and Wallace does not have a building. So if he gets that right push going, I don't know if Wallace is going to be able to stop it, regardless of how much elixir he spends.
Right-hand tower down to 233 on KK's side. There has been significant damage in both lanes done by the Brazilian, but again, that opening salvo, the mini base race that took place, put a lot of pressure here on Wallace. Does he get back to a Miner in time? No. Miner not there, Lightning in, and this is just absolute domination and destruction. All Wallace can do is sit and watch. 3 crown down. KK making short work in round number 1.
Yeah, I love the way he utilized the fact that he only has Barbs and Miner in his deck. He just pressures every single time with Cannon Cart. He uses the E-Giant because whenever he uses the E-Giant, he NATOs everything in, and he only has Skeleton Dragons and Inferno Dragon. So obviously, the Skeleton Dragons are going to get torn apart. And then the Inferno Dragon is just going to keep resetting when it's on top of the E-Giant. The best possible deck choice you could possibly do with KK. And he played it absolutely optimally. He goes with the Dark Prince and E-Giant at the bridge. And I'm saying that it's optimal gameplay, which hurts. But he played it so well. He did everything he had to and just walked away with another simple victory.
And this was an underrated miner there from Wallace. Would have been nice to go to the inside corner, maybe, knowing NATO was out of cycle, but it did at least get in front of the Skeleton Dragon and get some more damage on tower, but wasn't enough. And KK, you know, it's hard to, like you say, it's hard to say optimal gameplay in the situation, but, you know, I will say this, seeing Lava Hound first play get punished does at least warm this cold heart a little bit.
Yeah, you know, oh man, it has been so tough to defend those Lavas and Golems first play, and I gotta agree with you on that one. It was kind of nice seeing it get really punished.
Here's deck number 1, and it came down to a pretty simple factor. The lack of a fireball in Wallace's deck made it so difficult for him to contend with all those pieces there in the back. GG, well played. Is that is it pretty much just poison versus fireball, and that's the story of this game there, Josh?
Yes, the recruits versus Mega Knight can be. Oh, and then the other thing you have to look at is cage versus no cage. He can bring everything into the middle. You have the MK, which is going to be obviously amazing against Royal Hogs and amazing against recruits, but when you cycle the Royal Hogs and then you always have that defense where it allows you to full reset with Zappies plus Cage defending whatever comes down the lane, it makes it super easy for him to overextend with fireballs on offense and flying machines in the middle, and then he can just reset by using the Cage on defense.
So then we go on to game number 2, and we just saw it. We just saw how it went down. You Lava Hound first play. Sometimes the coin hits heads, sometimes it hits tails. And this time was a pretty nasty tails here for Wallace as he sees the tail end of his run through the winner's bracket. KK just immediately Dark Prince, Electro Giant at the bridge, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, it's a super impressive deck from KK because, as you can see, he has Tombstone, Lightning, and Inferno Dragon as his air troops. I mean, Tombstone obviously isn't an air troop, but, you know, it uses it to defend the air troops. And the entire time I was thinking that KK had just this massive matchup advantage for him, and I just think he played it super well and knew how to play against that deck. He probably had a good cycle, but I'm very impressed that he only has Inferno Dragon, and it looked like he was hard countering.
Let's go take a look at the bracket after our first 2 games of the day. And of course, we already saw Tico move on to the winner's bracket. He'll be joined by KK. So we'll see if Tico can take out another top player and stay in that winner's bracket, or if KK continues the reign he's on so far today. It has been absolutely brilliant to watch. Quick 2-0s in both of our opening matches of the day. And now down at the bottom side of it, elimination match. Wallace versus Viper. So another matchup that maybe Viper would be favored in, but as we were mentioning earlier, you can't really count out Wallace. He'll have to make some better deck decisions in this elimination match, though, if he's going to survive against Viper.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of the first 2 sets that were played were kind of interesting. The first one was the story of mistakes. The second one, story of deck choices. So it's going to be interesting to see how both of these players want to rebound.
Well, speaking about rebounding, you have 2 top-tier players. Ruben, of course, one of the best in the world, defending world champion, up against the man you picked today as your guy, Cody Go, coming out against Ruben. Why are you so hot on Cody Go today, the captain of Team Columbia?
Look, I've been watching his Twitch. I've been watching, you know, he has set himself up for a great year. He grinds so hard. Every single stream of his is titled Top 1 Del Mundo. He is ready. He wants to win more than he's ever wanted to win in his life. And special shout out to Bag. I saw him talking, and I agree with him and his analysis as well. He just looks like a player that is just strong. I mean, just a very strong player.
Ruben going hog in game number 1. No big surprises here. Hot guess from my side. He'll go Royal Giant game 2 or game 3. We'll see what happens. Cody Go immediately responding with a combination of Bomber and the Royal Ghost. And then Mother Witch comes out behind all of that. Interesting to see the Royal Ghost mixed in with two cards that are currently very popular together.
Yeah, Codigo, one of the other reasons why I really like him is because he's kind of willing to use anything. The last tournament I saw from him, he was using, I think it was like the Messy deck where it had like Fire Spirits and a bunch of other like weird cards. And this was Fire Spirit before the Fire Spirit buff. Because it's not that weird anymore. But I like the surprise factor that you can have when you're a player like Codigo.
Hog with Skeletons push on the left-hand side, and they will help a little bit on that Goblin Brawler, but not a huge amount of damage. Either way, Ruben currently leading in both lanes. The defending world champion. Of course, with Team Queso winning the 2020 CRL Championship. Codigo, though, no stranger to success. Of course, getting second place in CRL LATAM back in 2018. We were still in 5 separate regions, falling short at the last minute to the heroics of Javi Catorze and Vivo Keed, but has also been a big-time carry for Colombia, really helping them, lifting them to the No-Tilt World Championship 4th place finish in 2020.
Yeah, I love his story. I feel like every year he improves, and I really just, again, want to say, I think this is his year where, you know, he's really putting everything together.
First 2 minutes away, and again, the lead still for Ruben. 1496 on that right-hand lane. But of course, as we get more Elixir, things begin to get better and better for Codigo, as long as he keeps enough damage off tower. But that might be the blow that changes everything here, Josh.
Yeah, getting the tower down to 968 when you yourself haven't gotten the tower. Oh, and there we go. We do get the tower under 2,000. But going against a Tesla deck when you have E-Giant, and so far you haven't shown a spell, but it's pretty clear you probably have EQ or Lightning. Lightning is going to be my guess. He finally has the push. This is obviously going to be the push of all push. If he doesn't get this tower down, it's going to be all but over.
Firecracker getting a little bit of splash damage on that tower. 526 on the right-hand side of Codigo's tower. It is currently Ruben in control, but the Lightning rips the Tesla off the board. Can the E-Giant get damage here? No, second Tesla cycle. And this is the interesting battle that takes place late in these matchups, is that quick Tesla spam. Ruben getting back around very quickly and holding on now, 526 to 1218.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how he wants to play the rest of this game. Does he want to try and get EQ cycles? Does he want to try and defend? Does he want to try and do a high Tesla and then Hog Rider? And there we go. We do see the offensive Hog. I love this play right here. Getting the offensive EQ as well. With the log on top of the E-Giant, he should be able to defend it with no damage. Oh, and he chooses to go log on offense, not worrying about the one shock from the E-Giant. I love what he's doing right there, and that's going to be likely game over right here. Even with this defensive NATO, he just needs to spell cycle.
Log goes in, 34 HP. Firecracker does not splash on that right-hand side. Needs to get back to that one more EQ. Should be able to do it in plenty of time here. Piggies make it a little bit scary for a second. You see a bit of a deep breath there from Ruben. But Codigo made things interesting there at the end. Not enough, though, to take the win back from Ruben. Very, very well played by the champion.
Yeah, I really wish they had the camera on me right there, because me and Ruben, we acted the exact same way. Both of us kind of got out of our chairs because all those hogs, I don't care if you have a zap in your hand and you already have 3 elixir. When those kind of plays are happening, you get so nervous because you're like, I know realistically this is going to work, but it's so hard to really know until you actually finish off the game.
Definitely a bit of a nail biter there at the end. And you see this log, it's a bit of chip on that right-hand side and gives a little bit off to the Electro Giant. And it just, again, you're talking about, you have the elixir, the card is in cycle, but you just, it feels like you are in danger until that tower does fall in that final moment. So Ruben, game number 1 win, going Hog EQ cycle with the Fire Spirit. Codigo now, having already gone Electro Giant. Now, it's known that Ruben loves to play Royal Giant a ton. I mean, Hog and then Royal Giant, or vice versa, for him in the opening 2 games, really, really common. Do you think that Codigo tries to go for the prediction on that?
Yeah, I think he has to. I mean, you're playing against one of the greatest players in the world who is so consistent with everything he does. He doesn't make any mistakes whatsoever. And he's known for using kind of weird variations that make it more difficult to snipe. He uses healer. He uses anything he wants to if he thinks it gives himself an advantage. I don't know if you necessarily have to snipe him in this game, but I do know you have to be prepared for anything. You have NATO out of cycle, and so Ruben, even though NATO isn't the most spectacular card in the game right now, he is going to be aware of that and probably utilize that in his deck choice.
Spears for Código to open things up, Snowball, and then split archers for Ruben as Código responds with an early EQ cycle.
Yeah, Ruben going to be running archers, Valk. I want to know if he's going, he could be going that Mortar Graveyard. He could be going Lone Graveyard. It's nice to see Graveyard, which is so weird for me to say. It's nice for us to see Graveyard back in like a healthy way. Now that Mother Witch isn't like so overwhelming because people have started to get used to it.
So talking about something that's a bit overwhelming, when it was first adjusted, the Fire Spirit and more importantly the Furnace was something people could not stop talking about. It seems as though the Furnace chatter has died down a little bit though, Josh. It's not, we don't see as many Furnaces broken posts as we saw initially. Is it because people are used to it and not as broken as was thought, or people are just tired of talking about it?
Yeah, no, I don't know if the chat got overwhelmed by the Goblin Drill talk or anything like that. I think people have kind of just recognized how to go against it. And the thing about balance changes and Clash Royale, you want to have fun with the new cards. And so everybody is going to be running Furnace because it's like, we haven't been able to use this in a competitive game mode for 3 years, and you're finally giving us the opportunity. This is so exciting, and I think that's the main thing with everybody. Not necessarily that it was broken, but that it was just fun to play, and so everybody was using it.
So here we go, 1773 on the left-hand side, and a reminder to everyone watching, if you're joining right now, Goblin Drill banned for the month, not allowed in competitive during this debut portion because it's not officially released yet, only a challenge card at the moment. So as is standard, those new cards not available for the immediate competitive play. Of course, we expect to see Goblin Drill next month in our competitive circles. And speaking of coming in on that right-hand side, circle around goes the Royal Hogs down to 2,000, under 2,000. The dual lane pressure right now for Código. Relentless here.
Yeah, I love what he was doing right there. Earlier on, he was able to get a shot on tower plus the EQ cycle. I mean, this is tough for Ruben to stop this overwhelming amount of damage. He just can't do anything so far. He finally gets the Graveyard up, but his opponent just going to be able to use Knight, use the Musketeer in the back. The Cannon card is going to lock onto the Skeletons from the Graveyard. Even once he's finally able to get any kind of amount of damage, it just feels like immediately after, Código is going to be able to have a nice little counterattack. This is very difficult for him to try and get across. Even when he uses the Furnace, he's still just giving value to offensive EQs. This is just a very tough matchup for Ruben.
At this point, do you, especially with those towers down below 1,500 HP on both sides, do you stop using Furnace? Do you put Furnace on the weak side, on the strong side, just to create pressure? What's the game plan here for Ruben?
You know, I think you have to stop using the Furnaces, but I don't know if that's exactly what you want to go, because you have to use Fireball on offense, so you can't really use it on defense. Right here, good cannon cart. The Valk is an overextension, and we might have to be worried about the right side tower, especially with that missed Fireball on one of the Hogs.
Fireball and Snowball out on the right-hand side, and now into the lane that Ruben had begun pushing. Código starts to make his case. Pressure with the spears up high, responded to by the archers, and Mortar goes high for Código as we're in the final minute. Triple elixir flowing, advantage Columbia.
Yeah, I really like how he's using these Musketeers, trying to get the bridge battles right here. Maybe a little too much, but no, we're just going to see the Royal Delivery on top, plus the Spear Goblins or the defensive EQ, whatever he chooses to do. So the Spear Goblins on defense is going to be kind of weird, because he's kind of in this scenario where if he uses Spear Goblins and his opponent predicts it, he can give up way more damage than he wants to. So he's probably going to be using defensive EQs for the rest of this game and then cycling an offensive EQ at the very end. I would like to see him try and get one more offensive Royal Hogs up, but I don't know if that's going to be necessary.
Final 15 seconds, cannon cart goes opposite lane. There's the Royal Hogs you called for. Can they win this race? Almost assuredly. Fireball in, Graveyard not going to be there in time. Ruben knows it. The Graveyard will come out. Won't spawn enough skeletons for the win, and we are, for the first time today, going to go to game number 3. Codigo, very well played here in game 2.
Yeah, it was killing me that every game was ending 2-0. I thought I was already going to have to walk off, and it was... I'm not ready for that, so I'm so happy that he was able to win game number 2. And yeah, I really like the deck choice from Codigo. He played it really well, very good on the aggression side, cycling EQs when you need to. And yeah, I mean, the Knight was able to get a lot of value. I was kind of surprised to see Knight instead of Valk, because, you know, we've been seeing that so much, but I don't know if he used it game number 1. But yeah, really like this deck choice from Codigo.
So we've seen 2 different variations on a theme today, Josh, with Mortar and the Cannon Cart together. You've seen it in a very common version of Graveyard, and of course in this as well. What makes Mortar and Cannon Cart work so well together?
Well, Cannon Cart is just a very strong card. The reason it's not used more often is because you don't really have that offensive pressure that you used to have when it was a speedier Cannon Cart. So when you're using Mortar, it can stay on your side of the field and continue to get more and more value. And so that's why it's so popular with these kind of Mortar decks, because it doesn't really synergize with other things, but everybody understands that it is a very strong card as long as you can set it up in the right deck.
So game number 1 went for Ruben. Game number 2 goes for Codigo. And taking a look at some of what we've seen from them deck-wise so far. In game number 1 on Ruben's side, EQ and Log both out now, Fireball and Snowball. On the other side of it for Codigo, Tornado and Lightning down, as well as Earthquake. So Fireball available here for Codigo in game number 3, but not for Ruben. Quick predictions here, Josh.
Well, prediction number 1, Codigo is going to use a deck with Fireball. Prediction number 2 is, I was wondering, and so I'm glad that I saw Mother Witch first card, knowing that your opponent is going to be running Fireball, or, you know, not necessarily knowing, but pretty much knowing. Do you run a deck that doesn't include Mother Witch? He doesn't think so, and instead uses a Mother Witch E-Wiz. I gotta be honest, I have no idea what Ruben is running.
Yeah, Mother Witch E-Wiz. Electro Wizard seems like he's fallen a bit out of favor in the current map.
Yeah, we haven't been seeing as many decks that need it. I guess maybe Bats aren't as popular with E-Spirit still being around and Heal Spirit being a card that can be used. It is really, really interesting to see like why we've seen such a drop-off in that card, because overall it is a phenomenal card that gets a lot of value against a lot of different decks.
So looking like maybe Royal Giant here for Ruben. You see the Fisherman, you see the E-Wiz. Mother Witch can fit in things, and Ruben known for running lots of Royal Giant. We'll see if it is the big cannon carrier or not as we go towards the middle point of our opening 3 minutes. It is the lead ever so slightly for Codigo, 24-38 to 24-46.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to work for that to decide who has the advantage for that. But yeah, right there, Codigo not running Fireball, going to be running Poison instead. It's just very interesting to see. Ruben, I like the RG guess. That's what I'm going to go with as well, which is good. I mean, Ruben, he is so smart with how he plays the game. He's up 2 Elixir, and he's like, and he realizes that he's already won the game. It's just going to take him 2 minutes. He just needs to cycle correctly. I love when he runs RG.
So RG with E-Barbs in the back. Now you're saying that he realizes he's already won the game. What's your reasoning on that in this case? I mean, we're seeing Pekka, we're seeing Zappies, lots of ways to prevent that RG damage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he realizes it yet, but actually knowing Ruben, he probably has that mentality. But he realizes things so early, and then he's able to play off that for the rest of this game. It's going to be interesting to see if that actually continues to hold strong, especially because Lightning isn't going to really match up well against Zappies, and I don't know if he's running Lightning, but that's probably going to be the spell of his choice.
RG Lightning, of course, common synergy between those two. Electro Spirit does slow things down a little bit. Mother Witch still staying in the game right now, though. 23-58 left-hand lane as we go into sudden death overtime. It is Codigo with the lead right now on Ruben as he sets up E-Barbs behind a Royal Giant one more time. And again, Zappies and Mama Pekka in response.
Yeah, and he's just overwhelming. He's cycling the E-barbs in the back, and then he goes in with just everything at the bridge. He doesn't want to allow his opponent to set up with his P.E.K.K.A.s in the back and using the Ram Rider at the bridge. He wants to be the offensive player in this matchup, and he thinks that that's the best way to attack this matchup.
1952 to 1922, and Ruben now does take the lead, I believe, for the first time on the day. Maybe I missed a lead change there, but currently does have it by 30 HP. This time splitting Elite Barbarians in the back is Ruben. One goes to the right to meet the two Zappies, one on the left here behind the Fisherman as we approach the final 70 seconds. Triple Elixir is that advantage and a hold here for Ruben.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see. We see the E-Barb almost getting a second swing, just trying to take out the Flying Machine with the Mother Witch, not worried about anything else. Protecting the Mother Witch and going to allow it to get a little bit extra value. And look, we're going to see the RGs get cycled like crazy now that we're in Triple Elixir. That one shot from the Zappy, I know it's only 100 damage or 50 damage, but that's going to be very valuable for it. And right there, this is getting close.
Ram Rider in, poison on the Mother Witch. She does not touch. 1764, that's a big lead right now, given 30 seconds remaining, and a ton of Zappies on the board. Lightning probably the spell for Ruben. Very difficult to break past these Zappies, as you mentioned earlier. Lightning on tower now does have the lead by under 20 HP. Ram Rider to the right-hand side. 20 seconds left, and E-Barbs do have to come down with the Electro Spirit to defend. That whole 1672 still holding on the right-hand side. Final 10 seconds remaining. Lightning does beat out Poison as long as that Lightning does get there in time. A Lightning hits. Does the Flying Machine turn? No. The Electro Spirit holds on. And Ruben with a very, very pretty win here in the final seconds.
Yeah, you can see the frustration on Codigo's face. Oh, the agony right there. Ruben playing a phenomenal game. I had no idea it was a 50-50 shot whether or not the Flying Machine was going to lock onto the Fisherman right there. What a game that we were able to witness. Game 3, both players playing their best. And I mean, he double Elixir. He's cycling the E-Barbs in the back to set up the RG. Triple Elixir. He's not even using RG anymore. Just needs to get the few cycled lightnings whenever he can. Beautiful defense. E-Wiz protecting against the Ram Rider from getting the charge, but also protecting the E-Wiz from dying off too soon. I mean, just everything that he needed to do. I mean, just perfection coming out from Ruben.
I have to say, I'm astounded those Ram Riders didn't connect on the right-hand side. It was really, really beautiful defense, and he built it in a couple different ways. Did it, most importantly, very cheaply, considering how much he was spending on the left-hand lane.
Yeah, I was so impressed. He used the E-Spirit, and then he cycled the E-Barbs. He didn't panic and used the E-Spirit early. I just loved what he did. Every single time was just, I mean, it was different offensive maneuvers from Codigo, and he was always able to respond in the correct way.
So Ruben does take our first full 3-game match. Codigo, again, not out. We'll be seeing more of him. Look at the bracket in a little bit, but first, taking a look at these decks. And this was game number 1. Don't worry, Ruben did have 8 cards in this deck overall. That was a Fire Spirit as card number 8. And this is we kind of saw the clinic on how to properly defend it in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get aggressive with the Hogs. And again, I just want to say that one Tesla middle Hog offensive, that way you can't set up the right push, was so brilliant from him. I can't stress it enough. He's so smart with how he plays the game. But yeah, it was pretty basic plays from Ruben. Just exactly what you're supposed to do. Cycle the Firecracker so it gets as much value on everything. Try and get a second one when you're in double Elixir, trying to cycle against these brutal offensive E-Giant pushes. And then every once in a while, he'd protect his Hogs with Knights. And Codigo, he tried to overwhelm me. He did everything he could. It just wasn't possible for him.
Then on to game number 2. The tables did turn. Codigo with a really great choice here. And again, we saw that Cannon Cart Mortar combination, this time Royal Hogs. And it was this time Ruben who just couldn't get things going.
Yeah, what Codigo did in the second game when it was triple Elixir really impressed me, because he gave up on defending Graveyards with Spear Goblins. He wanted to use defensive Earthquakes because he was already up 800, 900 damage. There's no harm in not using the offensive Earthquake, because all you need to do is worry about that final 30, final 45 seconds. And the first 4 minutes of the game were played so well because he was using the Earthquake offensively on Furnaces, he was getting a lot of value with Royal Hogs because every time Ruben had to defend the mortar, he was overextending, and he was able to just defend cleanly and get the dub in game number 2.
So we go on to game number 3, which we just witnessed, and this was the closest game of the day. In the end, still a nice little gap for Ruben to win this one, but it certainly felt like there were moments where it could have swung either direction.
Yeah, I mean, just shocking to me to not see Fireball from Código. I don't know how much that would have changed things, but you have to assume by quite a bit. Could have used that Fireball on the Mother Witch, could have used it on the Mother Witch and E-Wiz when it was stacking the E-Barbs that were defending the Ram Riders. It is crazy to me that he didn't use it in any of the games.
So the most popular spell not making an appearance for the Colombian, but he will, of course, be making another appearance when he moves down to the lower bracket, but it is Ruben moving on to the upper bracket where he will join Tico and KK, awaiting the winner of Lucas and Surge TS. Two Brazilians will go head-to-head here in just a moment. Now down in the bottom bracket, Código awaiting the loser of that next coming up matchup. So you can see right now, Viper, Wallace, and Código all on the elimination block, all in the danger zone, and they'll see either Lucas or Surge join them. On the top, though, Ruben does join the 4 people with the extra life to give. We'll see whether it's Lucas or Surge TS joining him. But, of course, Josh, you won't be here for that. We're going to say goodbye to you here in a moment. But last thoughts on what we've seen so far today.
It was just a wild day overall. Again, the first set decided by just huge mistakes from someone who's known for never making mistakes. Game number 2, the story of matchups, and even though deck number 2 wasn't that crazy, like it was a crazy matchup overall, it wasn't a hard counter, he just played it so well. And then set number 3, the story of beautiful gameplay. Game number 3, one of the best games I've seen all this year. I was so impressed by Ruben's gameplay, and I was also very impressed by Código's gameplay as well. And I think it also comes down to, why aren't you using Fireball when you have the opportunity?
Well, we will see if other players do pick that up. Thanks, Josh. We'll see you a little bit later today. But right now, we're going to go ahead and bring on my longtime compatriot and good friend, Andrew Guy, to join me for the next couple of matches, and he'll be with us for the rest of the day. Andrew, we've had some great ones so far. You got the right pick on KK. Someone had to pick Wallace, man, just for the content, but you did get the right pick on KK. And now we move into our final first round match, our final opening match between 2 countrymen who both play for the same team, but not at the same time, in Surge TS and Lucas.
I'm wondering if you were the 1% vote out there for Wallace. No offense to him, but I know you did vote for him. I'm sure you got your hashtag in. Very, very exciting first 3 matches of the day. And as you said, our 4th match takes place in Brazil between Surge and Lucas. What's really interesting about this, Rich, something that you talked about earlier in the day was, has our 8 seed ever dethroned our 1 seed? So I did a little work while I was sitting back. It was the 2nd time it's ever happened in CRL. Todd did it to Morton early on. The other thing, though, when I was doing this research, was our number 2 seed has never lost an opening set. And in regards to this specific set, between our 3 and our 6, last time was the first time our 6 seed higher took down our 3 seed in Sandbox. So a little bit of context and a little bit of catching up numbers-wise for everyone at home, and of course for you, because you've been so busy casting with Josh. And here we are in our 4th match of the day between these 2 Brazilians, Surge TS and Lucas.
And Surge TS going with Spawner City, Goblin Hut, and Furnace. And, you know, I like Surge TS fine, known him for many years. We've hung out in CRL circles, and, you know, I don't know if I can ever forgive him for this one.
I really have a tough time. Like, when I play against these spawner decks, it is when I really, truly believe that BM does deserve to be in the game and that they should receive it. However, it's a really, really strong combination right now. Both of those cards, incredibly frustrating, obviously, with the boost of the Furnace there. You guys talked about it a lot in that last game. Ruben using the Furnace and the Fire Spirit very, very well. And honestly, it's just the amount of pressure you can create with that 1 elixir card or with that 4 elixir building now that makes you want to get them off the board with the spell, and that opens up the lane for the Zappies and for that flying machine.
What we haven't seen yet, though, out of Surge TS is a spell, and so far Mother Witch, in response to these spawners, has been fairly successful. First minute 45 away, and the lead currently going for Lucas, who's playing exceptionally well right now this month. Not only did he do very, very well in our qualifiers, but also currently 8-0 in the Queso Cup for his region. So at the moment, Lucas seems like he's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and you know that the other opponents out there, they pay attention to that. Everyone in this competitive scene is very aware of one another, and the fact that Lucas is on fire right now, Fireball maybe coming out a bit aggressive, we'll find out here in a second. But now that he's on fire, a lot of other players taking note of that. Everyone is watching what's going on with the Queso Cup, and looks like Lucas was able to recover a bit here, but down in Elixir with that Flying Machine on the board.
Yeah, Flying Machine has to find some solution, comes out with the 3 Elixir response in the Mega Minion, 25 seconds left in regulation time, and the spawners get cycled up on the right-hand side, Fireball immediately. So the lead goes back to Lucas courtesy of that Fireball, but not by a lot. And Andrew, this feels like we're starting to get more and more into overwhelm territory.
Exactly what I was just going to say. It really does here. Lucas is going to have to be so smart with how he plays these defenses. You can see Surge already looking for that fisherman, that fish boy. E-Barb's going to always come out up high, so the Flying Machine's there in response. And I like what Lucas is doing, but it's all about getting those effective and efficient defenses out and then getting back on offense. He is down right now, and he does have the weaker spell.
Oh, and you see something right there, Andrew, that was 8 Elixir of Fireball bait, all in the exact same spot, but those Fireballs being used on the Goblin Huts means that Surge TS was totally able to do that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're mentioning early on in this matchup, right? Those huts, those furnaces, they demand so much attention that those Fireballs stop being where you need them. And now that the Fireball comes out there, you have to imagine Surge is looking to set up another building as he has a big MK connection on the left-hand side, and now that Fisherman out of cycle.
Heal Spirit did not survive long enough to pull the Mega Knight, but keep in mind Lucas does have the lead courtesy of that last Royal Giant push. 1494 on the left-hand side as Surge TS sets up the Furnace on his strong side.
So here we go, RG coming back down the lane. Maybe a Goblin Hut comes out. No, he goes with the Mega Knight instead. He's going to take some more damage here, Rich. I don't know if that's the best decision this late in the game.
I think he's trying to set up for counter push. I think that's all he's going for right now. He's like, I'm going to use my health as a resource and see if I can create enough pressure in the opposite direction. And at the moment, it's not feeling like it. Cannon Cart does get knocked back by the log. Mega Knight high again one more time. And there's a bit of a pressure going in both lanes right now. 30 seconds left, and the Mega Knight's going to connect. No, the E-Barbs hold on, but how long can Surge TS hold on to beautiful Fireball value?
Wow. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about when we say a guy is just on fire right now. Lucas is completely in command of his cycle. He knows Surge's cycle. He knows how much faster he can get around and what appropriate responses he has, and he's doing exactly what he needs. Defend, 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 and defensive Fireballs to make sure that Surge is not getting value from those Fireball bait cards, and that was masterfully played by Lucas.
A big breath out there by Lucas, and he knew he maybe felt the pressure there early on, but that key Royal Giant connection taking care of business in game number 1. This was a really strange matchup here, Andrew. You don't see a ton of just spawner, no win condition stuff in CRL, but here we saw it, and it nearly got the job done until a big shift midway through.
Yeah, a few parts of that equation, right? Fireball being the most effective spell in the game, going to get a lot less value, or most used spell in the game, I should say. Going to get a lot less value, or Poison is going to get a lot less value in that sense. And wow, I'm having a hard time. It's going to get a lot less value than Poison against those spawning buildings, but Lucas did a great job with his Fireballs, right? If you can't use the Fireballs on the building, then use them on those units stacking up. There were moments when Zappies would stack up the bridge, he'd get a great spot with the Fireball, Surge would, but Lucas always had the correct response. And I think a big part of that was knowing his cycle and understanding his Elixir. He was always in a position to get those E-Barbs let down last second, to catch that Mega Knight, to get a Fireball out at the river, to get off on top of those Flying Machines and the Zappies. And he just did a really good job of understanding. Let me look at that average Elixir cycle. He knew how much in favor that was for him, and Lucas just took advantage of that.
Got back around very well. It looked early on like he might struggle with the Fireball placement. We saw Surge TS kind of abusing that, but then you saw some great Fireball value later in the game. So yeah, game number 1 out of the way, but keep in mind 2 very important factors from the side of Lucas's deck pools. He's already used Fireball, already used E-Barbs, and already used Mother Witch. So 3 key central cards to how you develop successful decks at the moment all out. The question then is, what does Surge TS do moving forward to try to take advantage of that?
Yeah, you know, you think that Lucas might go to something like Hog Rider. He does love Hog, and Hog Firecracker is very strong in this meta, but you know, one thing that Surge has to have on his mind is how well Lucas was able to deal with what you were talking about in that overwhelm. There was that moment where Surge had to probably have had 10 more elixir on the board than Lucas, but he was able to just get there in time every single time, and we'll see how Surge wants to bounce back here in game number 2.
Surge TS going fairly quick cycle here. Fisherman feels like Royal Giant most of the time these days, but we'll see if that's not the case this time around. Lucas not showing Hog in game number 2 and maybe being a little bit ahead of the game with the Magic Archer in the back.
Not seeing a ton of Magic Archer these days, but we'll see what other Fireball bait coincides with that card, if any. And yeah, Surge going with a very popular RG deck here, most likely RG E-Barbs in there.
And a little more cycle here from Surge TS, getting around very quickly here as Lucas sets up with the cage as we pass the first minute of gameplay. Magic Archer Tornado, often a popular combination, although more lately, in the last few months at least, Magic Archer Tornado, part of minor wall breakers, not as popular since the Night nerf, but still a solid combination.
Yeah, I'm curious if Lucas goes E-Giant here, and there it is, right as I called it maybe half second before I did, but it did seem that when you look at the cards that are surrounding everything other than the Magic Archer, yells or screams Electro Giant at you. The Magic Archer is a bit of a swerve in there, and we'll see how it pays off for Lucas. Prince going to do a good job dealing with these E-Barbs.
Classic Prince. Dark Prince currently is insanely popular in the game, but that's mostly because of Goblin Drill. You don't see as much Dark Prince in competitive at the moment with Goblin Drill not in the mix, although the shield-carrying brother of our Classic Prince having a bit of a renaissance right now.
So Cage sets up and a RG in the back, opposite side. We're going to see a Magic Archer and maybe a Prince here in response once he gets back around. He's got 2 more cards to play through.
Fireball onto the Magic Archer, and this will be interesting. The one kind of weird card here for Surge TS, and she makes sense in here, is the Mother Witch. And the target for the Mother Witch typically going to be the skeletons, but they're not really going to be making their way to her side of the field very often.
Wow, look at that. Lightning clears the path there for that Brawler to get on tower. And what turned out, or what looked like to be a bad exchange there for Lucas, turned out to be okay as he gets that big amount of damage in at the very end to actually take the lead. And one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot over the years, Rich, is min-maxing. And it does seem that Lucas has a better grasp of that so far in this matchup. You saw it in game number 1 when he went hyper-aggressive with the RG, got a bunch of shots in on tower and was still able to defend. Surge went for a swing for the fences and wasn't able to do it. And the same thing happening here late in game number 2.
Final 2 minutes, double elixir flowing right now. Baby Dragon goes high to hold the line here for Lucas, who does have a #1 finish in his ladder history on top of a win at the Moreno Cup back in 2019 for Moreno Cup 5, trying to add some more here as we go to 90 seconds left.
That Baby Dragon splash is huge, Rich. It really is. 954 on the left-hand side, a very healthy Electro on the right-hand side. Going to bring that down below 400. Might just take the tower outright. Look at that. That Electro Giant is so beastly and menacing once he just sets up camp on your tower. Another 2-0 sweep here on the day. 3 of 4 in regards to our matches.
Electro Giant, it's one of those cards that as soon as it breaks through, you think that you're like, oh, it's basically one shot. That'll be fine. And then there's 3 or 4 more shots on your tower and you've basically lost the game.
It was incredible how much that Electro Giant did, and honestly, Surge managed this game so well for so long, but you look at that, even that E-Giant with low HP, with barbs on him, gets a little bit of damage in. This is where the tide felt like it turned. Yes, Surge got damage in, but Lucas got just as much in, and he had an elixir lead. So you see here, Goblin Cage going to deal well with those E-Barbs, and this Electro Giant, somehow, with 1/3 of its HP, 1/4 of its HP, just takes the tower from about 1,400 down to 0.
Well, that's such a weird interaction. You take a look at that one. The fisherman, you want the fisherman to stay put and pull, and that fisherman just kept following the Electro Giant, trying to fish slap him, and you're like, hey, dude, get your hook out and keep this thing off my tower. But unfortunately for Surge TS, he wanted to hang out with the E-Giant there instead of pull him away from the tower, and that's going to be a GG well played. 3 of 4, as you said, Andrew. Clean sweeps on the day so far. Very dominant play. by a number of our players.
Yeah, we're through our first 4 matches of the day. We'll obviously take a look at the bracket in a second. We'll start to move to winners and, of course, elimination side. But here it was, game number 1. And you know, it went back and forth for a while, as I was trying to say before. Lucas not having the poison, maybe in a bit of an advantage for Surge TS, but the fireball placement by Lucas throughout that game was absolutely precise. He was a sniper with it. He was able to get so much value. And of course, the decision making on when to get that Royal Giant out to play offense was basically perfect. Great min-maxing there, and that's why we saw game number 1 fall in favor of the Brazilian playing for blue.
Yeah, you talked about that. It's when the Royal Giant started coming out more in double elixir, making it really hard for Surge TS to play an overwhelmed strategy. He couldn't stack those spawners in the opposite lane, had to spend money on defense, had to spend elixir on defense, and not able to keep up there as it went on. Then went on to game number 2 here, and again, a very interesting selection. On the opposite side, it was Surge TS with a strange call in game number 1. Game number 2, Lucas going with E-Giant, but a unique variation, and this ended up paying off brilliantly.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the Magic Archer was there just to help take buildings off the board that are placed so far away that you can't get lightning value. So then you get an E-Giant coming down the lane, you get a Magic Archer in the center of the map to help clean up whatever defensive building or a Fisherman pulling, and then you can use the lightning on the troops that you stack up on top of that Electro Giant. But you know, all those things being said, it's a lot harder to execute when you're out there playing in that 5 minutes, but Lucas was able to do it brilliantly, and he had great defenses over and over with that Goblin Cage plus Skeletons.
Let's go take a look at the bracket and see who's moving on and who's moving down. Of course, nobody out yet. This is still the end of our first round. Lucas with the 2-0 will go up against Ruben. That's going to be one heck of a matchup in the upper bracket. One of the all-time great 2.6 Hog Cycle players up against one of the all-time great players in the game. That will be a fun one to watch for sure. Surge TS down but not out. We'll be battling against Cody Go in the elimination brackets. That's what's coming up next here, folks. Viper versus Wallace. Loser leaves town, and same thing right after that for Cody Go in Surge TS. And then after that, of course, we will move back up to the upper bracket as Tico versus KK, and then the marquee matchup of Ruben versus Lucas.
Yeah, a really interesting start of the day for Viper. It felt like he was playing a bit out of sorts, whereas Wallace, it felt like deck selection and maybe a quick early misplay was what kind of made him sacrifice his set. But Viper, on the other hand of it, you know, you look at a guy that's that good, that's that consistent, and has been that consistent for as long as he has. You know, the deck selection a little different than maybe what we were expecting, but you kind of want to see that in CRL. What it really was with him was it just felt like his placements, his interactions were a little off. And I don't know if it's late, I don't know if it's early, or maybe it was just a bad set for that man.
Well, you know, Josh made a really good point in game number 1 that in that first one, Viper went with not his Hog Rocket deck that he's used to, but with something that is similar to what he's known for playing. Right, so he went with a choice that maybe got in his own head, where he made a rough choice that was counterable, no matter what he would be known for playing. So it was a strange one from them in game number 1, and then game number 2 with that mortar placement. You don't know what caused that. Whether it was just that he thought he was going to place it 1 tile higher and fat fingered it, whether it was that he was kind of in his head still from the deck choice in game number 1. Either way, not at his best. Has to correct against a very dangerous Wallace here with elimination on the line.
Our number 1 seed at the bottom of the screen. He's number 3 overall on our leaderboards, but not able to get things done in his first set of the day. Across the screen from him, Wallace, he's still in our top 25, Rich. He's our 23rd spot on that global leaderboard. Obviously, this month he was our number 5 seed. So both of these guys, while Viper's been here before and Wallace has not, have been incredibly consistent in regards to placing on that leaderboard every single month.
When you look at that overall leaderboard, Andrew, and we talk about how strong these weekend finals are, 5 of the 8 players are currently in qualifying range. 3 of them are in that top 24, and then the remainder, 2 more, are in that top 56. So a lot of talent here in the day.
I like that defensive freeze early on. You don't need to save the freeze to surprise anyone when you see those cards come out this early from both sides. You know, basically, when you see a bowler, you have to assume that you're going to see a freeze. Maybe you won't, but you have to assume it's going to be there. So Wallace, knowing that he could use it early on to win that bridge battle, really, really great stuff there. And now you see all the air responses, the freeze out of cycle. NATO is back in hand, so we'll also probably activate King here, which is why you see the follow-up. Really, really nice recognition there by Viper.
Really interesting directions from both of these players. Wallace going with bowler freeze, but with the Ice Wizard, who is so unpopular right now after becoming much more vulnerable to Fireball with the most recent balance changes. So very interesting choice to go with the Ice Wizard for Wallace, and it's going to be Graveyard Freeze, despite Bowler Loon Freeze being the more popular variation at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it still works out for me in that call there with the Bowler Freeze. It is Graveyard, like you said, instead of Balloon. We see at the bottom of the screen here, and now we see that Bowler Loon push coming right on through. Nice damage in from Wallace, though, on that initial Graveyard, and a good spot elixir-wise.
See some NATO play both directions. Viper going for the cheeky little pull, but Wallace ready for that one and defends well. Graveyard in on the left-hand side. Baby Dragon has to respond to the Inferno. GY going absolutely wild on the left. The freeze comes in. This is devastating damage.
It was a brilliant of who's gonna blink first. That was exactly what it was. A brilliant example of who is going to blink first. Both of them waiting for the freeze to come down, and Viper recognizes, all right, I can't wait anymore. There are too many skeletons out. The bar barrel comes down late, then the freeze comes in. 598 remains, and Viper playing very out of sorts today. That Valkyrie's gonna connect unless he NATOs. There it is.
That doesn't matter though. Graveyard in 6 HP, not gonna hold on. GG, well played. Viper 0-3 so far on the day. A shocking start to his June final.
Yeah, you know, I think part of it, Rich, was that opening interaction at the bridge. Yes, there was the overspend by Wallace to get that freeze out. The amount that he had to come down the bridge afterwards, to come down that lane, so much remaining on the board. And from that moment on, Viper tries to respond here with a hyper-aggressive Loon. You know you're going to get a drop, but you're also going to activate King. I don't know if the Lumberjack is the best decision there. As it was happening in the moment, I like that he brought it out to create more pressure, but it ends up being a bit of an overspend, as we can see here later on. These Graveyards, this is, I believe, the second one, they do so much work every time, and Viper actually has decent responses, right? The Bowler, the Baby, the Lumber, and the Bar Barrel all do a good job cleaning up that Graveyard. It's just about having the elixir to do it.
I do wonder if he misread the matchup, and from the first few cards he saw before the Ice Wiz, thought that maybe he was up against Balloon, because, you know, you're up against Graveyard, and Lumberjack might be the best response he has to those Graveyards there with its fast attack speed. So
yeah,
Viper goes with the Lumberjack at the bridge, a 9 elixir spend, and we see what happens in the opposite lane.
It's a heads-up call, man. I mean, honestly, that's probably exactly what it was. He's happy to throw that Lumberjack out, not thinking it's going to be Graveyard. You and I were both, or at least I was referencing them to both be playing Balloon decks. When we saw the Bowlers out, we saw the freeze early. Ends up being Graveyard instead, and honestly, that could be a part of decksmanship. That could be a part of swerving your opponent right there, because you and I, probably everyone else watching, immediately go, all right, Bowler, Balloon, freeze. Let's deal with it. Lumberjack comes out. Great stuff there. Whether Wallace was planning that or not, I'm sure he's going to tell you he is now. And a great game number one going his direction. Viper struggling, Rich.
Yeah, it's been a rough outing for him. Look, some days you wake up and you just don't have it. You know, your back feels a little bit tweaked, your head's a little bit fuzzy, and you're just not dialed in. And this might be one of those days for Viper. We'll see. He has one last chance here. Has to win the next 2 games or his June final journey is done.
Wallace at the top of your screen here, up 1-2-0. And now we see that Hog come out here from Viper, pleasing his fans, giving them what they want.
Yeah, look, you want to watch Viper, you want to watch Viper play Hog. That's pretty much it. This is the card that has gotten him to the top of the ladder. It's been what has made him great, and he plays it with relentlessly on ladder. We'll see if it turns into success here against Lava Hound.
Yeah, it could be a really tough matchup here when you talk about the air defenses from Viper, and I'm sure he's going to do his best to get those Teslas out and cycle those Hogs to stay aggressive, not allow too much, you know, to stack up on this left-hand side without creating any offense to keep this ocean of elixir being on one side of the board.
Not running the Hog rocket that he's known for. or the specific version that he's known for. We'll see what that final spell is. More likely than not, you know, I was going to say more likely than not Earthquake. Didn't have the elixir for it there, but we have not seen the EQ yet with 2 cages down.
Yeah, this deck is incredibly frustrating, Rich, and so strong. That Firecracker gets so much value when people try to defend the Hog pushes, right? The Hog gets halfway down the lane, you drop anything on top of it, whether it's a Cage, a Mega Knight, a P.E.K.K.A, E-Barbs, literally anything, and that Firecracker is going to get great piercing value there on that Princess Tower. Then you just talk about the cycle. You're able to cycle logs every time they defend, and that Ice Spirit just creates enough space and obviously gets the cycle back around. These Firecrackers stacking up, that's going to be a big part of the key to victory here for Viper.
If he can keep on the board, though, because arrows, of course, will wipe them off. Big elixir advantage right now for Wallace. This is going to be a big test to see whether or not he really can do something with it, because despite being ahead by, I want to say, 4 or 5 elixir at one point, he is finding himself unable to connect on tower.
I mean, look at that brilliant defense from Viper. Just absolutely perfect. I thought there was going to be a big connection from the Flying Machine, or at least some great damage in from the Pups. He keeps the first Firecracker kind of on the board. He tries to defend the Miner, but he gets the second one down and gets great value out of that little 3 elixir. She's such a nuisance.
And here we go. This is a lot on the board now. Everything on top of that Knight. The Tesla not going to stop the Lava Hound Flying Machine in, trying to get Tesla off the board. Firecracker going to work. Miner in, taking for the Pups. The Firecracker trying to keep those Pups from doing too much more damage. This is a huge swing towards Wallace. Sudden death overtime on its way. Wallace ahead by a mile.
And this is what I was referencing at the top of the match. It just is so difficult with one card to be your air defense and the Tesla, right? You got one building and one troop card to be your only air defense. Your card, your troop, gets taken off the board with those arrows and gives you damage on the tower. So just a really tough matchup here for Viper in game number 2. That's going to do it. A quick 0-4 for Viper, our repeat contender here, and our number 3 finisher on ladder, just not able to put things together today. Rough matchups all the way through, rough play from him, a little over-aggressive probably in game number 1, and like you said, even at the highest level of any sport, you just sometimes don't have your day, Rich.
And it looked like maybe he would have it. In the midway through this game, the defenses he was putting together looked brilliant. But, you know, Andrew, one thing that'll make a defense look brilliant is when you're overspending, when you're spending too much elixir. And this is one of the things I think maybe it was Hazard who mentioned this. Someone else had said this about an early Surgical Goblin interview from 2017 when he was wrecking everybody. When he was asked why he's so much better, he says everyone else spends too much on defense. And it looks good, but you saw the elixir shift towards Wallace, and over time, with Lava Hound, that's Punish City.
And the hardest thing, too, with Hog Rider in these situations is if you do defend efficiently, or maybe it appears to be an efficient defense, you have the urge to get the Hog back down on the board. But the issue with that is the Hog creates no defensive utility. Even going through the Electro Giant will get a little bit of damage on troops, right? But the Hog Rider, 4 elixir goes down the lane. If it doesn't connect on tower, that's a 4 elixir advantage that goes in your opponent's favor, especially if it's in the exact same lane. So again, tough matchup there. You had to pray that your Firecracker and Tesla were going to do so monumental amounts of damage on every single push, but that also has to coincide with Wallace not taking the Firecracker off the board, and at this level you just can't hope for both those things to go your favor.
Game number 1, and you see it was the Ice Wizard mixed in with this Graveyard deck, and despite Ice Wiz being unpopular at the moment, no spell to punish, and Viper got caught looking, and Wallace landed one right on the chin. GG, well played in game number 1. Andrew, this seemed like, again, we were talking about Viper being out of sorts. This first one, it felt like he, again, got caught looking.
I would have just loved if he only pushed with the balloon, got the 1 drop, activated King Tower, and then had the Lumberjack to deal with his life, right? We didn't know if a balloon was going to come out. We didn't know if a Graveyard was going to come out. But that Lumberjack, obviously not as effective against the balloon, but still having that elixir to respond accordingly would have been really, really nice, whether it was the Freeze, the Electro Dragon, whatever it may have been. But just not having it there, not enough elixir. Tower goes down very early on, and here we go. Game number 2. We see Hog, we see Rocket, but we don't see NATO and we don't see Exy. Obviously, NATO being used in game number 1. Firecracker, the better version. Interesting deck here, though, Rich. Not seeing the Earthquake come out, but it ends up being okay when you talk matchup.
Yeah, except for one key problem for this one was that Viper didn't have a good target for his rocket, right? And so he was trying to find a place to put that rocket, couldn't find a place to put it, nothing where its value. Wallace didn't clump up, and despite looking very pretty for a minute in the midway point, overtime, Wallace overwhelmed and got a very, very important win.
So speaking of being overwhelmed, we're going to take a look here at our bracket, and Viper 0-4 on the day, just not able to pull it together. That's all right. I'm sure we'll see a lot more of him, and we'll probably be seeing him at World Finals. Wallace working through that gauntlet that is the elimination bracket. Now going to wait and see who wins between Codigo and Surge TS. Codigo, the only player that was eliminated in our first round that got a game.
Yeah, he's still in it, but going to be difficult for him here. Surge TS certainly a quality opponent. Now, keeping in mind, thinking about Viper one more time, Viper exiting early and not getting more points from this weekend. And you look up at the upper bracket, it's Ruben versus Lucas, who are both also in the top 10 at the moment. So more likely than not, one of those two will earn enough points this weekend to overtake Viper for that number 3 spot. So very, very kind of getting a tight race here for those top seeds at CRL.
Absolutely, and obviously we'd expect nothing else here at the highest level. Rich, thank you so much for guiding us through this part of the show. We'll be seeing you at the very end before we say goodbye, which means I got to bring on another one of our talented commentators and another world champion in Eric Benamou, our former world champion head coach of Team Liquid. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I am so ready to get going. I've been watching these matches for a while, and I'm like, all right, I want to cast. And you know I love elimination matches. I think everyone already knows that, especially when it's with two veterans like we have right now.
Yeah, Eric, you and I spent a lot of time casting together over the last couple of months. It's been an absolute treat, and one of my favorite things to do is put you on the spot, man. That's what you do when I'm the guy that gets to ask the pro the questions, and I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Talk to me about Surge and Codigo, their first sets out, and who you think has the advantage here in this elimination matchup.
And I'm ready to answer that question exactly what I expected from you. Surge TS had a lot of good deck choices. He's someone that's very, very analytical, but there was just some mistakes on the defensive side, right? The Fishermans were coming out on the E-Giant very high up. When you go against the E-Giant, you can take your time, pull that E-Giant to your King Tower. There is no rush to try and get it to the other side. I think that's what Surge TS had a little bit of mistake on, and I want to see him play a little more calm. He had double spawners against RG. Yes, he was going up against one of the best RG players in the world, but you just need to play more calm. And on the other side, if you're Codigo, I wouldn't change anything. He lost, but he lost 2-1 against Ruben in one of the closest matches you can ask for. I think he's playing phenomenal, and Crap said it earlier, right? He's been grinding every single day on stream. He's been grinding the Queso Cup. He's at the top of everything. It's not a coincidence that he's here in the top 8. When you play that much, you got to be confident in yourself. And I would not change anything. I would not overthink it. You lost 2-1 against the best player in the world right now.
I love that advice, because Codigo did lose to the best player in the world, or arguably the best player in the world, by only 274 HP, I think it was what it was. And, you know, obviously the spell value was there, but just not the time for Codigo. And I think what you say about Surge is really fascinating. It's something that Rich just pointed out when he was talking about the best in the world. They always talk about the one thing, and that is incredibly efficient defenses. And we'll see how these guys flex their defense in this elimination game. Remember, whoever loses here is done for the weekend, done for the day, and gets to walk away with a little bit of cash, but I'm sure that 20 grand sounds a lot better. Codigo, bottom of your screen, top of your screen, Surge TS. Here we go, Eric.
Yeah, and a lot of these times when we're facing elimination matches, I will tell you, okay, the nerves might get to them, but this is a matchup for them that I think they've played each other more than anyone else. They were both in CRL LATAM, both faced elimination matches there, and they've been in CRL forever, so I don't expect this to come down to nerves. I really, really like this deck choice out of Codigo. This, along with the P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider deck that we've seen along with Ladder and in the global tournament, are two decks that I find very, very strong, and I'm happy to see them both using these decks here.
Glad that you mentioned the nerves, Eric, just because when you look at the talent that's in this competition, while we do have 5 competitors that were new to CRL 2021, they are not new to the competitive or online or professional format. The one person you can say is maybe Tico, but if you've been watching closely, he's been around for a very long time. He just hasn't been at the absolute highest level like he is right now.
Yeah, Tico's one of those players that's kind of like Lucas when last season in CRL, we kind of considered him a rookie, but he's as far away of a rookie as you can be. He just wasn't in CRL exactly. But yeah, like you said, Tico has been around for forever, and most of these players have. We don't have someone like Ta, who's a true rookie. They have competed in absolutely everything, and right now Coligo playing really smart as well. He's picked his moments perfectly, and it doesn't help for Surge TS that he's running a lightning version of this deck. I understand wanting to save Fireball, but when you're running a deck that is so strong, I think you go with the best meta version of it and try to secure a win.
Dark Prince gets on the tower there. Codigo maybe taking a bit of damage to get back on offense. Now he has enough elixir to get a spell out if he'd like, and there it is. Earthquake comes down first as that Muskie cleans up things on the back end. Spears there to get that bandit dash. 461 remains. Really nice stuff here from Codigo.
Just a lot of answers from him, and now he doesn't have to force anything, right? You want to get that delivery back into cycle. I love the cannon carts in the back. I think Josh pointed out earlier, the cannon carts are now used a lot more defensive. Back in the day, it was like, okay, I think I can get one onto tower, but with the new speed, it is one of the best defensive cards in the game. And now not only does your Ram Rider have to deal with connecting onto the mortar, it's going to go ahead and connect onto this cannon cart as well.
Wow, cannon card getting so much value as you're praising it. That card getting so much value in regards to getting damage out on the board, and of course redirecting that Ram Rider. 241 remains. That mortar did connect on tower. We weren't able to mention it because so much was going on, but 241 remains as a Ram Rider bandit push comes down the right-hand side. Cannon cart there to get a little bit of damage on that Ram Rider. She should connect though.
Yeah, he's just gonna connect here, but the cycle should be in game here. There's the earthquake, and I expect it to come down one more time. It's a quick cycle. Get those spear goblins down. Now it's not about having the perfect defense, it's about getting it back in cycle. It is okay to overspend a little bit if you need to. There's the earthquake, and that is game. And Coligo really has been playing perfect Clash Royale. Got a little bit of damage there for Surge TS, but I think it was all in play for the end game.
And you can see on Surge's face, recognizing probably the mistakes that he made a little bit too late, frustrated, but still has a game to give here. And as you can see again on his face, that at the end of his frustration, he kind of got calculated. He goes, okay, what do I need to do? How do I pick up a game here? Started off in favor of Codigo, and it basically stayed that way through the game. Mother Witch there almost evens things up, separated by about 41 HP, but it allowed this Royal Hogs push to come in, and from there on out, it really did feel like it was all in Codigo's favor. The Dark Prince connects here, which is fine. If the P.E.K.K.A connects, that's where you have a problem. We get him back on offense, and then Surge was, like you said, a breath of life. A little bit comes in when that Ram Rider bandit push comes in on the right-hand side, but it's just not enough.
Yeah, it really isn't, and a lot of this came down to Coligo trusting his defenses. You and I have spoken about this so long, casting together, that it really comes down to, you saw the P.E.K.K.A, right, with the sliver of HP. A lot of us would have panicked, and like Rich pointed out earlier, right, Surge back in the day would say the best players are the ones that don't overspend, and that all comes from trusting your defense. He knew the Musk was going to hit that one specific time. He was able to save his elixir and then go on the counter for some extra chip damage with the Royal Hogs, and it was awesome to see him really, it feels like Coligo from 2017, 2018. He's feeling himself again.
Yeah, when you talk about trusting your defense, that cannon cart got so much value. It's, it was on the board first, soaks up a lightning shot, stays on the board, gets more damage out, takes the Ram Rider's attention, and even gets the bandit to walk over to it at the very end. And that was the prime moment for any lesser player to drop any more elixir on the board to ensure that defense, because Codigo didn't, because he recognized exactly what was going to happen interaction wise. He was able to stay in the elixir advantage, stay on offense, and take game number one.
Absolutely. And if I have just one comment on Surge TS, I love how analytical he is, but sometimes you got to just trust your game, play what you're comfortable with, right? That change to the lightning, it seems like it was an analysis based change, and at the end of the day it ended up hurting him. Just go with that fireball like it's meant to be in that deck. I absolutely love analysis, but it's to a certain extent it could hurt you as well. You need to be confident in your gameplay. It is what got you here.
A 3-1 split. Those Royal Hogs going to get a lot of damage on the left-hand side. Nice NATO comes in to activate King and get one of those piggies to turn its attention away from that Princess Tower. 1848 to 1421, along with the King Tower activation for Código, and going to get a little bit more splash damage here from that Firecracker. One of the most frustrating cards in the game and one of the most overutilized cards in the game right now.
It is so strong. Whenever you're going up against it and you don't have a direct hit to it, like a Fireball, like arrows, even Fireball is just a terrible elixir trade because you need it for the other cards. It is so difficult to deal with. But on the other side, the positive thing you do have are those Zappies that are surprisingly really good against E-Giant.
Yeah, the E-Giant already such a slow card in general. The Zappies slowing it down even more. Couldn't agree with you about the strength of those Zappies. Any stronger. They're one of the most fascinating cards in the game that obviously aren't really ever threatening, but what they can do on defense and the space that they can create offensively is unparalleled.
Yeah, and the only positive side here from that is that there is no Fireball, right? This is always played with Lightning. I'd assume so here, unless they try out a new variation. So the Zappies do get a lot more value than if you're going up against a Fireball deck, but he has to be very, very careful. He needs to save these Nados as well, because the Flying Machine becomes a very big problem with no Fireball in hand. We've seen it over and over again be the game changer. It is that win condition, that unexpected win condition, and he does have it here available to him.
So Mega Knight takes the cage off the board, and of course, Código recognizing that, sets up with a bomber in the left-hand lane, but a ton of damage coming in on both sides here for Surge TS. He's not quite in the lead, but a lot of damage in. Now we get those E-Barb cycled in the back along with some high Zappies. Everything pulled right into that Electro Giant. It will not hit the tower, but a lot of elixir spent, and there's that Firecracker, Eric.
Yeah, and the reason he got so much damage on the left is because it appeared like Código's bomber forgot that it actually does splash damage. It targeted only one Hoggy. That's why I got a little bit nervous, but that Firecracker, being the Firecracker that he is, got that last hit, and then the lightning came in. But that bomber got really scary. Yeah, the bomber just not focusing on what Código needed him to, but it was okay, just enough in time. The lightning comes down the first time we see it in that game. 2 up, 2 down, as has been the story for the day. Código being the only person to take a set or a game off of someone when he lost the set. And wow, you and Josh were not kidding, man. He seems really, really dialed right now. Every day when I go on Twitch, he's there grinding, and he's not just grinding content, right? It's different when you're a content creator, and he is just grinding a real practice. He is going for that #1 on ladder. He is playing the global tournament at the highest level. You can tell that he has that hunger. He wants to prove to everyone, okay, we're back to an individual format. Watch what I can do. And it's really paying off here. The best players in the world have always been the best players because of how much time they put in and their practice, and Código has been putting in more time than I've ever seen him. And here you see that Firecracker getting that last little splash of damage in. There's the lightning, in case you missed it, to take the tower, and Código making it look easy here in this 6th set of the day. And Surge TS, while having a very exceptional month, says goodbye to everyone here at CRL. And what was it in this set specifically, you think, Eric? I just overanalyzed, in my opinion. I think the decks were very specific. It seemed like snipe decks, and in a competition like this, when you're playing against the best players, if you're not comfortable with your own deck, you're gonna suffer in the matchup, because if you don't get the 100-0, the 90-10 matchup that you were hoping for, then it's gonna be very tough to adjust. They're probably gonna play a deck that they do feel very comfortable with, and I think right here, you switch over to that Fireball in this deck, it makes it a lot better, right? You can defend those Hoggies a lot easier. You don't have to worry about having that Dark Prince constantly on defense. You can get rid of the Musketeers as well with the Ram Rider and a Fireball, and he decided to go Lightning. It just made it way too heavy of a cycle, and then it put his other deck in a weird position as well. Yeah, you talk about that lightning value, just really going to struggle against the piggies, going to struggle against the Royal Delivery, the cannon, everything on the board just screams Fireball, Fireball, Fireball. So we go to deck and game #2 here from both Código and Surge, and you know, it was aggressive Electro Giants early from Código that ended up paying off, maybe recognizing what Surge was running, knowing there wasn't going to be a building or a fisherman to pull him every which direction. The E-Giant gets early and on tower, and
Surge just kind of felt like he was making up ground for the rest of the game. He did make a very big offensive swing late with dual lane pressure, but just not able to get enough damage in early enough in the game, and probably because of the pressure that Código created.
Yeah, and as much as I'll say I think he overanalyzed, on the other side, Código was very straightforward with his deck choices. It was, I'm going to use what I know, and I'm going to use this mortar deck that has been working so much, and that's all he had to do. Like I said, he didn't have to change anything. I did not see anything in his first set that really worried me.
So let's go and take a look at our bracket to catch up with our last two matches of the day, and a very quick day that we've had here on Saturday, and Wallace and Código will keep moving through the elimination side, but it's back up to the winner side of the bracket. Tico and KK will be match number 7. Ruben and Lucas X Gamer. Lucas from Brazil. Of course, we all know him. Going to be the final match and our match of the day. We'll talk about that in just one second. But Tico and KK, two very, very different players, especially when you talk about their history in the game and at the highest level. Both of them, though, dominant in their first set out, Eric.
You cannot get two more different players than these two. KK about as experienced as you can be in CRL. For all of his teams, I think he was the one that played the most amount of matches. And on the other side, Tico, someone that has never played in CRL. And then you add on the archetype difference. You have someone in KK who's such a quick cycle, log bait type of player. And on the other end, that Three Musketeer heavy deck type of deck style. It is so different. I'm very, very excited. And what I've learned in the past with this format is you never count out the 8th seed.
That's right. You could not be more correct. And I would love to see some 3M love out here in match number 7. But before we start our 7th match of the day, our 8th match between, again, Ruben and Lucas is the 2nd match of the day. So all you have to do to vote so that we can talk about it here on air is hashtag Ruben or hashtag Lucas in the chat. Just got words on the screen. Put them in the chat. I know it's tough. A lot of people out there doing exclamation points and @ signs and all that. And I saw the YouTube chat. Just hashtag Ruben, hashtag Lucas. We'll talk about those numbers in just a moment. While we are tabulating those and while you guys are getting your votes in, we do have to deal with KK and Tico, as you were just saying, two very different players in this game. One very fast, one very experienced. The other one been around forever, a little bit heavier. Is 3M worth bringing out today, other than to say I did it at CRL?
I think this is a time where you take a page out of Viper's book and say, okay, this is my deck of choice. No, it doesn't work in this meta. Let's move on. I'm all about the comfort decks, but not right now, man. Not the 3 Muskie. I just don't think it plays well against any of the archetypes in the meta right now. I think it loses to almost everything. Fireball is about as prevalent as it can be, along with the Bard Barrels. And those Firecrackers are very, very annoying to deal with as well. So I just don't think it's the right time.
So bright and early this morning at, I think it was 5:45, you and I were talking in the green room, if you will, about the decks that were going to come out today in the competition. And I'm pretty sure you've been basically 100% on all of them. Maybe you didn't call the Graveyard Freeze deck, but I don't think anyone saw that coming. Otherwise, you were like, I think we're going to see about 5 or 6 decks. How are you feeling now that we're almost all the way through the day? Have you found yourself being very correct in this situation?
Yeah, I think I expected a little bit more of the P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider with the Fireball, but the Mortar we've seen, the Royal Hoggies are obviously very, very, very prevalent. The only deck that I would love to see that I haven't seen yet, that we saw a lot of, is a double witch with the Night Witch, Mother Witch, Mega Knight Graveyard. That type of deck not only will catch your opponent off guard, but there's not a lot of poison. And if you can wait on them to even use a poison deck and then bring that out, I think it would be phenomenal choice. And I would love to see it out of someone.
The combination of those two witches, the Mother and the Knight, just make choosing where to use your spells very, very difficult. And honestly, if there's a mistake by you early or by their opponent, and they let that Mother Witch spawn a ton of units while they're able to have a Night Witch in cycle or able to be played afterwards, that's when you really struggle, right? Because you have to just hit the panic button. You have to get the spell out. You got to get the Mother Witch off the board. And then the Night Witch comes out and she just gets so much value. Trying to get to those bats becomes impossible with the Mother Witch out of cycle, which is what you look for. So I agree. We saw a lot of that at GameStars League. It was pretty effective, but obviously we're at a different level of competition here in CRL, but innovation has paid off in the past, right? We saw Ruben do it with his Electro Giants before.
Yeah, it definitely has paid off in the past. It has to be calculated innovation. I think that's a key in all of this. Ruben does change 1 or 2 cards that catches their opponents off guard, but this is a proven deck that works. It's just not something that people expect out of you, and I really like that. I think maybe I like that they're straying away from the golem, because the golem, even though it was very strong, now we're seeing way too much P.E.K.K.A, way too many mortars that defend well against it with all these cannon cards. But I still think the Graveyard Mega Knight is an effective deck, especially when you can catch them off guard in that first push, right? We've seen it so many times where it wins just off one early game push.
So reminding everyone at home where these two gentlemen stand in our leaderboard: 215 points to 370 KK. They're from Japan. Of course, Tico from Brazil, one of our several Brazilian players in the tournament this month. And we did just say goodbye to one of them in Surge TS. As we get ready for this set, while we're not doing predictions on this matchup, Eric, do you have a prediction here? Do you go KK again, like everyone else in the world on that first vote, or do you go Tico here, the underdog?
Now I'm going KK, man. You can take the Tico prediction and go for the underdog. I'm picking first, and I'm going KK. He is so good, and he has been playing so well. I think this meta very much favors him. And even though Tico played he really impressed me in that first set, I think he was very smart with his deck choices, and KK is just a little bit tougher to predict.
Here we go, match number 7 on the day in our winners bracket. KK, Tico, both perfect on the day and both going very heavy here. Tico goes Lava Hound first. KK happily responds with the Golem in the same lane, and already looking like matchup in favor of KK, but it's very early on.
Yeah, I just hope he has something other than just arrows and zap, because if it's only arrows and zap, and on top of it, it is an Electro Dragon deck, that makes it even tougher. When it's just the Skelly Dragons, you can do the arrow zap combo, get them off the board, but you cannot do that here. So if he doesn't have a big spell, he's gonna struggle a lot. Yes, that Inferno Dragon worked out right now, but you can expect KK to get the cycle that he wants later on in the game, and that will basically not do anything with that Electro Dragon behind the Golem.
Arrows come out, arrows and zap, just like you called there, Eric, and not going to be as effective as Tico would like against this Electro Giant Golem deck from KK. And Lumberjack gets the miner out of cycle here for Tico, and very interesting start here with that Golem getting a little bit more damage than that Lava Hound, which is what you expect, which is why we see Tico go opposite lane here.
This is dangerous. You are playing with fire here when you are just gonna leave that Golem to go on the left. If he decides to build a really big push here and just defend the lava with something like the Mega Minion, trying to mitigate the damage, you can be in for a rough ride. Let's see if he supports this with absolutely, I would like a dragon. There it is. I was gonna say absolutely any air unit just gets some extra support, and now Elite Barbarians on tower. Like I said, you are playing with fire.
Yep, and you were 100% correct. If you were on the bench here coaching Tico, you might have been losing your mind at a live event, looking, recognizing, and also you knowing that win condition in Lava Hound like the back of your hand. You knew he was in for trouble. Now Tico trying to make things happen, but against KK, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to get those kind of swings, although it does look like he's going to get a balloon drop.
Yeah, he's gonna get connections here, but the problem is he has 9 elixir now, and if he drops anything, now he has to go with the barbs on the right. He needs to defend this. There they are, and that causes him not to have the push that he wants on the left. He has an Electro Dragon as well that will take care of all of this with the Baby Dragon. And I do like this split lane pressure. The only real mistake he did here was going on opposite lane with the Golem. It just gives way too much freedom.
And there you go. Nice pull with that Lumberjack. Does get the Inferno Dragon, but the Inferno gets pushed by the Balloon. Now Balloon going to connect on that right-hand side. NATO comes in. Left-hand tower gonna fall in time. This is a crazy turn here by Tico, who is technically in the deficit, but does a great job coming back in the game.
Yeah, and I think the big issue I see here from KK is the lack of pushes with the Golem. The way that it works the best is go Golem. There is no rush for you. You can defend very well. He's putting together these Baby Dragon Elite Barbarians, trying to get this tower down a lot quicker than he has to. He has to recognize lava really doesn't do that much damage. I have NATO, I have Baby Dragon, I have Mega Minion. I can get this loon all the way back. There's no big issue.
Eric, this is trouble. NATO comes down very late, but the balloon only taking shots from the King Tower.
Wow.
Death damage is in. Baby Dragon comes out just in time. 960, 775. No chance for a golem. And we see an Inferno come down in the pocket just in case. Both players deciding to reset with about 70 seconds left to play.
That loon was as close as you can get without it hitting, and he's forced to put this lumberjack down just so he can get back to NATO and try to get that electro dragon in a place where it will hit the inferno dragon as well. Very, very nice arrows there. That's gonna take it down, and that could be game over here.
I think it is. Look at that balloon coming in late. There's the electro dragon to reset. Skeletons at the bridge. Death damage gonna come in, but obviously not as much as it used to be. E-Barbs catch the miner. KK fighting for his life, and he does have enough elixir to get a golem down, but you can't spend that much this late.
This is very, very strong push here as well with that raged up Elite Barbarian. He has nothing left. He has this miner, but it will get taken down. And another set of Elite Barbarians. That is game over. Is it? Yes. It
is beautiful.
No, it's not.
Beautiful adjustment. But we got the E-Barb on the King Tower. A zap resets those barbs. 91 HP. Not enough for a NATO. This is ridiculous.
I cannot believe what we're watching. Every time I think it's game over for someone, it does not appear to end. And here we go. Arrows coming down. If that loon gets death damage, which it should.
Gonna get there.
Oh, man.
Oh, the arrows, the zap, not enough. What a fireball would have done for Tico there. A brilliant game number 1 in match 7 here, separated by less than 100 HP. I can't believe Tico came back. I can't believe he almost won the game.
I would like to say that match was separated by 0.5 seconds, not even 100 HP.
Man.
That loon was going to get death damage. The time ran out just in time for him. So I think Saved by the Bell works here in this scenario better than ever. But what a match.
Wow, that set of E-Barbs in the pocket, just absolutely brutal to deal with. Somehow, though, Tico is able to make it happen. And just brilliant stuff here in game number 1. And, you know, we said early on the matchup usually goes in favor of Golem, especially when they're played in the same lane early and with that tower falling early. But you know what? Don't ever count Tico out. He's able to turn the entire thing around, and some brilliant minor catches there from KK keep him in the game.
Yeah, they sure do. And I think the only reason this was as close as it was is I expected this to come with a Night Witch. Whenever you have Golem Night Witch and you're not playing against Fireball, you're not playing against Poison or Lightning, that's where you get the big advantage. But he decided to go basically a full air support here onto his Golem, which gave a little bit more life to Tico in this matchup. He didn't have to deal with all the bats that would have accumulated onto the Golem and to defend the loon, right? When you have that Night Witch, it's not only an offensive unit, all those bats stack up and you have to zap them earlier than you would want to, or your lava or your loon will go down very early. And I think that gave a little bit of life to Tico.
So here we go, game number 2. Cage out early from Tico here, and a log from KK to respond. And Tico trying to stay up in this winner's bracket after dropping his first game on the day.
Yeah, I would not be disappointed if I'm Tico, though. You played against KK that has been running through everyone. You almost brought that back, and that has to give you, even though it's a loss, it feels like whenever you come back in a game and you make it that close after losing a tower, it even gives you a little bit of confidence later on to say, okay, if I take some damage, it's okay. I've come back before. I can do this again.
Nicely timed log there, prevents any damage from coming in on the tower. And I think you're 100% right, and that's kind of what we saw out of Codigo in the last set. You know, he loses to Ruben by just a hair, 270 damage or so, and he bounces back in that elimination bracket, plays some pretty perfect Clash Royale.
Yeah, he definitely does, and I really like this push here. Now he's gonna have to take care of the bats if that does go down. There they are, and a graveyard coming in. I really like this type of deck in this meta. A nice snowball there as well to slow everything down, and Tico playing decks that I really do think work out well. A little bit of an unfortunate matchup early on, but if he could get the right push, it seems like he's gonna do a lot of damage.
Yeah, this deck in double or triple could be absolutely brutal for KK to deal with. So KK trying to get his damage, his money earned here early on in single, and we're going to see a Cage here probably push that back. And there it is.
Yeah, and it's very important for Tico here to realize that now it's going to be a game where he needs to recognize it's all about my defense. I need to have my cycle the right way. The reason why he took so much damage here is not because he doesn't have answers. It's because of the fact that he didn't have them in cycle. He went very offensive, used too much elixir, but with that Fisherman, that P.E.K.K.A, and that Goblin Cage, he can always defend his pushes. P.E.K.K.A all the way in the back, and this is something that I learned from Carpi, the best P.E.K.K.A player in the world, in my opinion. He always told me, play P.E.K.K.A in the back. When you reach all this 10 elixir, you gotta play it all the way in the back, in the tower that you have taken the most damage, not the one that you have done the most damage with. We go, P.E.K.K.A there. Nice poison as well onto the Musketeer. Fisherman, not too bad either, and it almost gets onto that tower. It wouldn't have been a lot of damage anyway, and Tico here really struggling. I'm not sure what the plan is for him at this point. He's just taken way too much damage on both sides, needs to get a cage down, needs to combine this with a Fisherman as well, and it's a little bit rough here. The cycle that he got himself into, was never able to get a graveyard going the way that he wanted to, and it's all going a little bit downhill. He would like to try and survive this, and I think if he does somehow survive this push, he still has a chance. That P.E.K.K.A is very healthy on the left hand side, but again, graveyard will go down with not enough time.
Yeah, Fireball comes in just in the nick of time, and it was another one of those buzzer beaters last second. But KK doing exactly, I think, what you and I expected, what everyone at home expected in his first set, and experience really does pay off at this high level, Eric.
Yeah, and that deck choice is not bad at all. When you look at the matchup, it really isn't. The problem was that first push was just too early, and it left him with 2 elixir on a full defense, and then it all just spiraled down because you are playing against a quicker cycle. If you're down on elixir and you have the quicker cycle, it is easier to get back on track. But when on top of it, you're playing against someone that cycles not just a little bit quicker, but they have logs, skellies, bats, electrosphere, all this going for them. It's almost impossible to get back where you wanted to.
One of the fascinating things that we've looked at after the matches, Eric, and we talked about it a little bit, and it's honestly one of the things that we highlight kind of very little when we talk about our match recap, is, you know, the average elixir cost. But look at that massive difference. We've seen 0.8, we've seen 1, but this is 1.2. And when it's that big, it's so difficult to keep up, especially with someone like KK, who knows how to play those brilliantly perfect defenses with like 4 elixir coming from 3 separate cards.
Yeah, if there's someone that knows how to use the cheap cards well, it is KK. He made his name with bait. He made his name by cycling quickly, by making sure he always has the correct amount. And the correct amount for him is 4 to 5 elixir. He doesn't need that full bar. As opposed to the other deck, you do need 7 elixir for the P.E.K.K.A. You need to get that cage down in time to push it back. You need to get the Fisherman to combine it with him. You have no cheap defenses. And KK here, 2 great deck selections. And on top of that, great way to play them.
Yeah, I love that we saw a heavy deck early on from KK, and while he is a bait player, while he's a quick cycle player, and that's a lot of why he was able to dominate game number 2, was very different here in game number 1. He still had some great recognitions. He knew when to build those pushes. It sounded like, you know, from a coaching standpoint, that he should have gotten a few more golem pushes out, a couple less of those E-Barbs Baby Dragon pushes, which I completely agree with. Once he recognized he didn't have a big spell, it made it very easy for Tico to just go, cool, I'll just drop barbs on top of whatever you're going to send in hyper aggressively. But late game, you saw KK proactively work against that. The barb barrels, the Baby Dragons right behind, things looking for those responses, and he was able to put it together in the final moments. When we look at game number 2, Eric, talk me through this matchup a little bit. As you said, it doesn't look terrible for Tico, but KK played this very well.
Yeah, it's really not a bad matchup, right? You can take care of the bats and the skellies on defense for the graveyard. You have the P.E.K.K.A to defend that RG, the Fisherman as well. But it all comes down to KK understanding the game to a higher level. As soon as he recognized, okay, wait, he just went graveyard, P.E.K.K.A, Night Witch, there is no way he has elixir. Let me drop this RG on the bridge with nothing behind it, because I know he has no elixir. He ended up getting 3 to 4 hits and then still dropping the goblin cage, so then it pushed him all the way back to 0. And at that point, KK was like, okay, I'm gonna drop a log now, I'm gonna drop some skellies, and I'm back to RG, and I'm just gonna keep pressuring over and over and over again, and I'm never gonna let him get a push down.
You never want to overextend yourself at this level, and it's something that we've talked about in different fashions today, whether it's defending efficiently or not overextending on offense, both of them leaving you wanting later on, and they will punish you for it at this level. So here we go, our final matchup of the day. As you can see, it's been a lot of 2-0s here in the winner's side of this bracket, but Ruben and Lucas looking to close things out. One of them going to go on and face KK. The other one will be facing off against Wallace. Codigo down there as well with Tico will be the other matchup. So a lot of brilliant Clash Royale still left to play. And before we see your guys' predictions, which we do have the numbers, Eric, who do you have in this matchup? I think I know.
Okay, before I say anything really quickly, Lucas, when I tweet you saying you got this and you're gonna win this weekend, I truly do say it out of the bottom of my heart, but I'm not betting against Ruben. I just don't do it. I'm sorry, Lucas. I love you, man. I promise. But it has never gone well when you predict against Ruben, and I will go again and say, I think it will go 2-1. It'll be a very, very close game, but I'm going Ruben.
Well, Lucas probably won't shy away on Twitter to say something back to you. If you haven't seen Lucas, he's got a very entertaining Twitter, and you don't have him in your, or he doesn't have you in his corner right now, so I will go in Lucas's corner. I will bet against Ruben, and I will be the fool that bets against our world champion. I'm going Lucas here for the upset, and we'll see. As you said, it doesn't work to bet against Ruben, and well, I'm going to try it out here. Let's see what our audience says as we take a look at our predictions.
Yeah, and honestly, the predictions should go around that 50-50 mark. It ends. Wow, that is shocking.
Really?
That is shocking to me.
So even though Ruben wears the queso crown and wears the queso tag, Lucas, doing his work in the queso cup, has won over the audience. I mean, maybe we have a lot of Brazilians in the chat today because of the representation of their country in this tournament, but I am shocked, and I guarantee you, Ruben wants to prove all those people wrong.
Yeah, he sure does. He's someone that's very, very quiet. Obviously, the opposite of Lucas, who's always, you know, really telling you how he feels and everything. And he's been very excited about this today. And I had a little bit of a chuckle when I was looking at the bracket, because I saw Wallace there, and it's like, congratulations, man, you moved on. Now you get to play either Lucas or Ruben. It is probably the worst possible situation. Both of these players, we could see this in our finals. This could easily be a rematch in our finals.
Yeah, I don't think it would surprise anyone out there. Ruben going to go very aggressive here with the P.E.K.K.A at the bridge to protect that Mother Witch. And now we see Lucas doubling down on his defense. Musketeer there. Knight comes out to protect that cannon. Musketeer does survive the exchange, but 2 elixir in favor of Ruben as Lucas goes heavy on the offense.
Yeah, and this is exactly the 2 decks that we spoke about in that green room, right?
Yeah.
The P.E.K.K.A with the Bandit, Mother Witch, and on the other side, that Delivery Mortar Hog deck. It is so strong. Both of these players known to play a lot of meta decks, but also experiment with a lot of decks. So I do like these choices. Let's go safe early on. Let's see what the opponent brings. And I want to point out really quickly, we don't talk enough about these 2 players, in my opinion, are the 2 best RG competitive players in the world. So I would love to see either a mirror match and see what happens, or them bringing out each one at one point in this set.
Yeah, a really, really great call. Ruben, a transcendent player in general in Clash Royale, but when you talk about someone able to match him in the game, Lucas running RG is a big threat. So maybe we'll see that in game 2 or 3, but right now it's P.E.K.K.A Ram going against this Mortar Royal Hogs deck, and Lucas down quite a bit. We see a well played coming out from him. That P.E.K.K.A still working towards tower. Knight has to come out in response, but good damage on both sides here. We're basically even.
So smart. His pushes are so calculated. I have never seen a Ruben push come out and in not either force out extra defense or connect on tower. Look how little elixir he has. He is up almost a full bar on him. Yes, the Musketeer is down, but now what? You have a P.E.K.K.A on the field, Dark Prince probably coming out on the left. A perfect play and perfect understanding of the game from Ruben here.
I mean, even just the timing on that P.E.K.K.A. is impressive to someone like me. He's like, all right, I've got just enough time. Let me place her behind the tower. She'll walk in just in time to get the Musketeer shot and get that Royal Hog off the board. And yeah, the dual lane pressure from Ruben is phenomenal. Not just because he's able to create dual lane pressure, but the way he's able to demand responses and extra elixir out of his opponent. That P.E.K.K.A., I believe, doesn't need a response, goes off the board just in time, but another P.E.K.K.A. comes down.
I talk a lot about trusting your defense a lot, but in that moment, I kind of wanted him to drop everything onto that P.E.K.K.A. I don't know how much you trust it. He's obviously a lot more calculated than you and I, and that's why he did not drop anything else. And if he would have been at a severe deficit, and that's the reason why he's here playing at the top level. He understood, okay, I don't need anything else, and now he's back in the game.
Yeah, that was a great recognition and a good call there by you, Eric. Had he spent that extra elixir to defend, he would have probably lost the game right now, which it looks like he might do anyway, because Ruben just seems to have an infinite ocean of elixir at his disposal at all times. Bandit gonna connect on tower, Bandit gonna stay on tower, Poison comes out, and I don't even really know what to say in the sense of Lucas played that very well. Early on, there was some Spear Goblins that allowed the Bandit and the Dark Prince to connect, but he had so little elixir. He was having to kind of pick his poison. Do I take the Bandit dash or do I take the Prince charge? I got to take one of them. But otherwise, it felt like he was playing pretty well, but Lucas just could not keep up with what Ruben had to dish.
Ruben is just too calculated, and that's the reason he's the best. Ruben has never been the best because he makes the flashiest plays. I think if you go back and you make a highlight reel out of Ruben, the only people that will understand it are people that understand competitive. He makes everything seem perfect. Every single push forces out extra defenses. It either catches you on the back foot, no elixir. He has no problem in waiting to do damage. Early on in that game, like you said, Lucas had a damage lead, a little bit of an elixir, but it was all Ruben calculating the right time to go in. And once he does, he makes it count.
When you look at those highlights that production just pulled for us there, it's crazy because you look at elixir, just look at the elixir, either the elixir in the tank or the elixir on the board. Every single interaction, Ruben was up handedly over Lucas. And like you said, Eric, he doesn't go flashy. He doesn't go for the knockout, right? He's like, all right, I hit you with a jab. Let me hit you with 7 more jabs before I hit you with that uppercut, that haymaker to really take you out of the game. He recognizes his elixir advantage and he gets his cycle exactly where he wants it. I've always said that this is a guy that late in the game, these pushes come together perfectly and there's just no way to respond.
He's one of the most frustrating people to go up against because you always think you're doing great until he decides to start the game. It's like, okay, I'm doing great, I have a chance, we're doing okay, I'm about the same on elixir, and then he pulls the trigger on his push and you have no way of really handling it. You did not expect it. He is just one step ahead, and there's a defense that you can say he was perfect on.
Yep, looking for that there. The minor Valkyrie push stopped perfectly by the Skarmy, plus the delivery. You see an oops come out of Lucas, and Lucas kind of going for an old school deck here. Minor, Magic Archer, Valkyrie Wall Breakers, NATO most likely in there. And you see something that you don't see out of Ruben often, which is he called good game already, probably recognizing he is in a horrible matchup.
He sure is. As if Valk and Log were not enough, you add Magic Archer onto that, probably with some NATO play as well, and there is not much you can do. But if I'm Lucas, I have to stay focused. You know that he will not give up. Yes, he's in a terrible position, but Ruben will always try to figure out a way to come back, and you got to keep your foot on the pedal here.
Yeah, very kind of uncharacteristic for Ruben to even look up at the camera as we just saw him do during the game. You'll recognize players like him, they just stay locked in for the entire 5 minutes, and sometimes we'll get a glance up from Ruben after he wins or loses a game. But I think him, again, just recognizing this horrible matchup he's in, he has to have the mental fortitude to go, okay, I am not going to win this game. I'm not going to win this game, and I can't get tilted by anything that happens in this game. And knowing how strong he is mentally, I doubt that's going to be a factor.
Yeah, and this is even a worse matchup than it used to be, right? We used to see this with Bomb Tower, and it made it a little bit easier. Even though it sounds weird to say made it a little bit easier, this Tesla takes care of Princess if it's played high up, because it's down low, and as soon as that Princess gets into range, then it pops up. So it makes it even a more difficult matchup. That's why you see him playing it this high up now, and it just very, very smart play out of Lucas, and even better, a deck choice. We like to say a lot when a player, you know, messes up on deck choice, or here Morten has struggled with deck choice. I gotta commend it when they do it well, and here Lucas picked the perfect deck.
Yeah, it really is. Every single response always locked and loaded and ready to go here for Lucas. And even in this situation, he decides, all right, I don't even need to spend Elixir on offense. I can save it all, or on defense. I can save it all for offense. And he does exactly that, gets a lot more damage in here on this left-hand side. Valkyrie plus Miner connect. Although, Ruben still in this and just behind by a hair. Great Magic Archer there from Lucas.
Yeah, beautiful Magic Archer. As much damage as Ruben was getting, he brought it back with that Magic Archer onto the Valk. But he does need to be careful. It seems like little by little, Ruben is taking a little more control than he should in a matchup like this. He's playing those Teslas very, very smart, and the Valks as well defensively. He's keeping them with enough health to where they actually have to get defended on the counter,
which is really, really important, because he needs Lucas to overspend. That's the only way he's going to make something happen.
Yeah, and here we go. That Magic Archer and the Bats were completely focused on that Valk, and that's all what I'm saying. You got to keep it healthy. You got to force out extra interactions, and a very nice Tesla there kept the Princess alive, and this will force out extra defense.
Yeah, this is a moment for Ruben to make something happen. That Magic Archer, though, gets a brilliant snipe on the Princess, takes her off the board, and that might have been the last little bit of hope that Ruben had to stay in this game. Miner plus Wallbreakers come down the lane, Skarmy there to meet, but going to allow that Magic Archer to get one piercing shot in.
Yeah, and it feels like he's one NATO Magic Archer away from winning this game, right? We're all waiting for it. That line combination that we've seen so many times come out of him. Basically, the first month of CRL, it's what we were most impressed with. And there it is. You want to see it closer to the tower to close it out. But at this point, it seems like he's just playing it safe. He knows that Ruben will capitalize on any mistake made, and he doesn't want to be that guy that makes one mistake.
Wallbreaker's going to come in here. There is the Dark Goblin answer. That Wallbreaker does connect, though. Doesn't get the Skarmy down in time is Ruben. There's the lineup you're talking about. And that is going to take us to game number 3. Eric, a blessing from the Clash Royale gods with that great deck selection by Lucas. Obviously, he had to put in the work and decide what he was going to play, but it matched up about as good as it possibly could when you talk about what Ruben was running, that bait deck with no big spell. And Ruben already saw the writing on the wall 10 seconds into that game.
There was no better matchup that Lucas can ask for, and that is one of the most difficult things to do against Ruben. Getting a good matchup versus him is just as difficult as actually beating him. You never know what he's going to play, and he's usually puts himself in a very, very nice position. And on top of everything, Lucas did not force anything. The respect that he has for Ruben is very, very evident, and it should be there, because one little mistake will flip the game on its head. And even without the mistakes, you saw Ruben kind of claw himself back into this game. And I really, really like at the end when he saw the double Magic Archer here with the NATO that I wanted to see. Lucas said, you want to see it? I'll give it to you double. Here you go.
There it is. Lucas lines it up perfectly to take that tower down. And Ruben, Lucas, 1-1 in our 8th matchup of the day. This is why it was our 2nd match of the day. And you guys in the chat and voting at home still in favor of Lucas, who evens this set out now 1-1. And I mean, Eric, if we talk about matchups, if we have a very favorable matchup once again for either of these guys, it feels like either of them could take the set, not just Ruben gonna have to drop the set.
Yeah, because the thing is, they're both so good that if you put them in a position where they have that good of a matchup, it's very hard for them to lose it. Here, I want to see what they go with, because they're both known for RG in decisive moments. Every time it's time to close out a set, both of these players tend to pull out RG. Does one of them try to go straight for a counter? And it seems like Lucas might actually go that way. And with the Goblin Cage, this could be RG from Ruben here.
I hope so. I hope that Lucas does I love seeing the Night Witch, but just when I was about to get excited about the Night Witch, the original, the OG, she comes out that 5 elixir beauty on the board, and you know what? How appropriate for Ruben to be the person playing that card.
It seems like Dark Angel is making his decks. I haven't seen it come out since that weird Dark Angel deck in the first or second month. I don't quite remember, but I like both of them not going with what we expected, and they both actually might be heading in the same direction here. I love to see the Witch. It's something that we've always spoke about. Ruben, he will take that risk with one card that will change everything.
And just like you called it as well, Eric, look at that Mother Witch go. My God, a lot of piggies on the board and a Night Witch up front, Mother Witch behind. Poison comes out offensively here. Lucas trying to make his mark early in game number 3.
And this is looking very much like game over, to be honest. I promise you, I do not coach Lucas. When I said I want to see this deck, I did not tell Lucas to play it. It just happens to be here now, and that is why I wanted to see it. It is so strong. It is so versatile, and look, we usually see the tower go down in one push, but it's usually with a graveyard and a Mega Knight, not both witches and arrows.
Look, that's why we pay you the big bucks. That's why Liquid paid you the big bucks. You called it early on. The double witch combo comes out and brutalizes Ruben early on in game number 3 in single elixir. That aggressive graveyard from Ruben, uncharacteristically aggressive, maybe not considering what his opponent had. When you see that Night Witch come out, I think you have to just in the back of your mind expect that Mother Witch is a possibility. I would have loved to see him pump the brakes on that graveyard, and we might still see ourselves in a single tower game, but rough stuff here for Ruben. He's got to take 20-40 in 30 seconds and take that left-hand tower with graveyard. It's just not going to happen.
It's not. It's definitely not. And yeah, very, very uncharacteristic out of Ruben. What I was just praising him for was sitting back as much as he does, right? And he has to be careful here. He does have poison and he has arrows, so me just saying he needs to be careful is trying to add some excitement to everything, because the push on the left is actually harder than the push on the right. Just very, very smart deck choices out of him, and not going to RG here, which would have probably lost.
And you see Lucas there, I'm sure very, very happy with his performance today. Exceptional plays. He's able to take down our former monthly champion, our former world champion in Team Queso's Ruben, who will be back tomorrow. He will be down in our elimination bracket. But Eric, what a brilliant showing for the Brazilian Lucas X Gamer.
He was so smart in his deck picks. The talent has always been there. He's been someone with just raw talent since day one. It's not everyone that could stop playing Clash for a year and a half competitive, come back and be the star of a CRL. You cannot just do that if the raw talent isn't there. And the only thing that you really need to combine with that is smart deck picks. Put yourself in a good position where your mentality is strong. And once you see Lucas playing like that, it's very scary.
Yeah, Lucas has been playing like that all day today. You saw it in his first set against Surge TS, just dialed it defensively, knew when to go aggressive offensively, and the same thing here against Team Queso's Ruben. Brilliant stuff from Lucas. Great to see him succeed today, and we'll be excited to see what he does tomorrow in that winner's bracket. Obviously, him and KK will be the next matchup up there, but before we talk through the bracket, let's talk through this matchup a little bit more. Let's look through their decks. And did things go wrong for Ruben, or was it just the decks in games 2 and 3? Let's talk through one here first.
If I was the coach of Ruben, things went wrong for Ruben. As a caster now, I look at things a lot more positive. So good deck choice from Lucas here. But no, the beginning of this match was exactly what we expected to see. The 2 decks that I told you that we should see in every single set today. Very smart out of Ruben. And then I think later on in this, the biggest problem were that the changes he was making weren't better substitutes than the ones already presented to you. The Witch is nice to present into a deck, really make that change, but when you're taking out the Mother Witch or the Night Witch that are just stronger right now, it doesn't really make sense.
So in game number 1 here, you can see the Royal Hogs just not able to pay off. Ruben was basically in an elixir advantage for 5 minutes for the entirety of that game. As we look at deck number 2, I have to admit, I was excited to see Ruben rocking bait, and this version of bait specifically, this is the no spell version of bait, creates a lot of pressure, a lot of, places to pick and choose those small spells, whether it's the Skarmy, the Barrel, the Dart, the Princess, or the Goblin Barrel. But Lucas, perfect responses with this deck, the Magic Archer, NATO, Valk deck, just really, really tough stuff. And that Miner, the only way that Ruben could actually catch that Miner was with the Valkyrie, but the Valkyrie was needed so much on the front end to deal with Lucas's. So great stuff there in game number 2 from Lucas. Then we go to game number 3, little aggressive graveyard early on from Ruben, and no way to respond when you look at the cards that Lucas has to play with.
Yeah, this is just a very, very tough matchup. Even if he wouldn't have gone aggressive early on, we know what that Fisherman does in this matchup with the Mother Witch and the Night Witch. It spawns up all those bats, it keeps it where you want it to be, and then that counter with the Mega Knight, I just think he was better positioned. You have arrows and you have poison. It is a graveyard matchup. You on top of that have the Mother Witch that is always going to force out the Fireball, so he cannot just graveyard with the Fisherman. He needs to always have the Fireball available, or the counter will just be too strong. So yes, it was a little bit of an overcommit early on, but it was going to happen sooner or later, and I think Lucas was just better prepared for this matchup. Deck number 1, 2 very meta decks. Decks number 2, 2 decks that I don't think either of them expected to play. It worked out really well for Lucas. And on the third one, just Lucas going meta and understanding what works. Let's not go super experimental here. I need to win this match, and he definitely did win it.
Yeah, and of course, when you talk about Ruben's response there at the very end, the Witch was what was back in cycle. 5 elixirs for a card that is not going to do a ton of damage, and those skeletons just feeding the Mother Witch even more. Arrows took it off the board, but it was just trouble for Ruben, and that is going to do it for you on the day as we say goodbye to you and of course everyone else at home in just a moment. Eric, is there anything that you have, a little nugget of information for the competitors and the people watching tomorrow? You called the decks early on, you called some of the mistakes. What do you have for tomorrow?
I'm just super excited to see that Ruben possibly come back from the lower bracket. I want to see him bounce back. I really do think that we will get that rematch in the finals, but more than anything, I love to see Lucas put himself in these positions to really win. In the past months, he's been trying to get there. He's been struggling a little, but now he's in the winners final. You need to continue to push forward. This is where you're going to see Lucas at his best, and I really am telling everyone at home, come tomorrow, watch him play when he's feeling confident, because it is spectacular.
And I'm sure that young man is feeling incredibly confident right now. Eric, thank you so much. As we say goodbye to Eric Benham, we bring back Rich Slayton, my good friend. And I have to admit, it did warm my heart when you called Josh Andrew earlier. It just made me feel really special that you're so used to saying my name after all these years. So my brother, how are you? How have you been doing? And what do you think about these last couple matches?
I mean, you got the best stuff of the day, man, to close out the show. And yes, the number of times I've called many people Andrew whenever I'm casting without you. So it's not the first time it's happened; it's the first time it's happened here. But it's a common occurrence. You got the great stuff today, and of course, the one everyone wanted to see was Ruben and Lucas. And we saw a little bit of everything in that one. And of course, what we're going to see is more of those two tomorrow as we go take a look at our bracket for our final 6.
Yeah, an incredible matchup there to close out matches 7 and 8. KK and Lucas X Gamer will be our 11th matchup, our 3rd match tomorrow. But we've got to start off, of course, with the bottom of the bracket. Ruben, Wallace, Codigo, Tico. Rich, it's surprising to see Ruben, TQ Ruben, at the elimination side of the bracket.
Yeah, you know what? Everyone loses sometimes, and it's going to be an interesting one against Wallace. You have to pick Ruben as the advantage there, but as we saw earlier today, Wallace has the ability to step up in big moments. Codigo and Tico, the really interesting one. Keep in mind also, 3 of our 4 Brazilians still in the mix. So what I'm curious about is when we get to that next stage, will we have 1 Brazilian left or will we have 3 Brazilians left? There's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, and Código playing very, very well today. Dialed in. He loses his first set by just a couple hundred HP. He bounces back in the elimination bracket. I'm excited to see what he's going to do tomorrow. And I got to say, for the first half of the day, Rich, while I was sitting back and watching, I was reading the chat, and there was a lot of people out there feeling very confident about their playstyle when they saw the 2-0s in CRL. So you know what? You can compete here at CRL. Anyone can, as long as you're in the top 1,000 of that leaderboard. Look, if you think you can 2-0 someone just like you saw here in CRL, come and prove it. Anyone can do it, except for probably you and me, Rich.
Yeah, I know. You and I will only be appearing on this side of the broadcast, not on the other side. But maybe next month, it'll be you watching right now. Hit that ladder, grind it out, and come back here. And maybe we'll see you play at the level that we've seen over the course of this month. We're down to our final 6 for tomorrow. Andrew, if you have to pick a final, don't pick 1, pick 2. We'll see in the final. Who do you got?
I would love to see KK, and I would love to see Código. I love what Código's doing in the elimination bracket. I love what we saw out of him today. I like that he was the dark horse pick from AC. And you know what? KK has been a lot of fun to watch today. He seems really dialed, but I'd be just as happy to see Lucas there as well, putting up a great set against Ruben. But those are probably the 3 with my initial 2 that I'm going with. KK and Código in the finals.
My prediction is tomorrow we see KK and Lucas do 3 full sets. Winners bracket final, back down for one of them, back up for one of them, and then a super final on top of that. So that's what I'm calling.
I love it.
For tomorrow. We'll see if it happens, and of course it'll be right here. Don't forget, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. Do not miss a moment. We are back again in the morning. I know it's hot for those of you in the West right now, so as always, make sure you drink plenty of water. See you mañana.
Bye.